Hello and welcome to GRAPPLMania Spotlight, recorded here live on Grapple Patreon, very much live. I'm Venom.
I'm JP.
And I'm Gareth.
YouTube and Spotify are going to ding us for that one, JP, but we are here.
I thought it was being clever pressing pause as well, but there we go.
Lucky, close enough. The theme song to the war in the 70s in Ireland. Good to be here on a sorry to make it dark here on a Monday night. I think it's Monday. I think we know what day it is. We're probably going to get right to it today. It being a GRAPPLMania Spotlight, and then if I know previous years, it'll be a long one. If you're missing Matty from the intro quote there, don't worry. We're the glass half full podcast. He's the glass half empty podcast. He's the glass half full podcast. He just at a time of recording about 2 hours ago flew over on WhatsApp another file update for me of his Monday morning / Sunday night and all the different things he's been spending his cash on. $1 Budweisers and some, I'd say, alternative takes, Gareth, on WrestleMania night 2. So they are out there and publicly available for anybody that wants them over on the Patreon. They've been cracking ways to catch up, haven't they?
Oh, I've loved it. It's really weird because as much as there's been things to sort of be down about with WrestleMania, and there's like certain elements to it, just always in the back of my head, I've just had Matty's there and he's having the fucking time of his life, and he's just eating all of this alive and just loving every moment of it, and just getting them audio updates from him, like to go alongside the photos and things that he's been sharing. It's just been absolutely like class. It's just made my weekend is just hearing him just buzzing off every part of his experience. So yeah, if anybody's not listened to those day-to-day updates from Matty, like fucking get on it right away, because like so good. So really feel like I'm there with him.
He's missing. Unfortunately, he's wrong about absolutely everything he says on those podcasts. Apart from when he put over Dave's chicken, I'll give him that. Dave's hot chicken got a shout out today. Now he's not. He's having. It's one of those, isn't it? Like Gareth said there, JP. It's tempering my. We're probably going to be quite a negative podcast when it comes today, but it's like all the things I hate are all things that have made Matty have an even better time while he's been out there. So I think it all kind of works out. So that's what we do. We attack it from both sides. So you get the negative from us and the positive from Matty. Get you a podcast that can do both.
He's with his people. That's where he is.
That's true, actually, yeah.
He's and he's like you said, Gareth. He's living his best life, and if he's not living his best life there at this, where will he? Like, I don't think it'd be at all possible. But he is absolutely fucking like loving it. His updates have been absolutely crackerjack as well. To WrestleCon to queuing up at ungodly hours to see Jey Uso.
So a podcast with Ahmed Johnson apparently being planned between Matty and Ahmed Johnson. That's been my favourite picture of the weekend. That and Ernest the Cat Miller was up there, and whichever one of ICP it was, he got a photo with as well. I don't know if he's talked them into any podcast as well. I believe he bumped into Almost, didn't he, as well? Probably asked him about his Nowhere. Top Dollar, I believe, got stopped by Matty in the where he belongs amongst the public outside of the arena where WrestleMania was taking place. He's seeing all the stars.
Oh, he is, isn't he? And like, he got to see Troy again outside of Birkenhead, which is always nice.
That is actually the best one yet. Him and Shane Douglas, what a picture!
It is as well.
As they put the business to rights.
Going up to Kurt Angle saying, "It is you who handles your Twitter account," and he's like, "Yeah," clearly not having a fucking clue what's happening, and he starts talking about the Angle the Angle mixtape we do with his best matches.
Probably asked him if he listens. Probably gave him a little sell job on joining King of the Mountain tier. I'm expecting a Kurt Angle to pop up in there.
I hope he doesn't listen.
Coming. Oh yeah, to be fair, yeah. He said that to him. He's like, and I told you had loads of 5-star matches. I don't remember on that mixtape Matty really going to bat for any of those matches as 5 stars. But anywho, that's what he told Kurt in person. But no, they've been wonderful audio. Obviously, we've been on the other end of it and doing all the homework side of it. Obviously, I had me and JP covered Thursday, and then me and Gareth with the all the Friday shows, and then me and JP again on Saturday. So we've got plenty of audio over on the Patreon running through the different WrestleMania weekend shows. And I think at the end of the day, we'll give you a little flavour of that as to our favourite matches, best shows, best performers, and probably another 15-minute conversation about Butterbean. So you've got that to look forward to as well. A little bit of a mop up on some of the other things I've been finding myself watching. You know, it was only I had a couple of minutes to myself this afternoon, so I just thought I'd throw another half an hour worth of wrestling on from the Rev Pro show today. So we'll from yesterday, so we'll catch a bit up on that as well. But without further ado, we do need to dive right into it with the 2 days of WrestleMania. As I say, give the alternate take to what is currently floating around on the Patreon. I imagine, unless Gareth, you were just doing a bit on the Discord and Saturday night, we're absolutely loving all 4 hours of adverts we got on Saturday night. But you were telling us off Gareth, you watched that along live with us on Saturday night. It is Easter weekend, so it has, I think, meant a few more people than normal stayed up on the Sunday night, at least by our Discord standards, to watch along the show. I did too, but I assume you caught back up with it this afternoon.
Yeah, I got up. I thought I'm not fucking staying up again for a second night. You know, I did the night one, no problem. Like literally, I could have sat and watched another hour's wrestling. Maybe not WWE. 3 in the morning.
It's you didn't get much.
When I got to that point, I wasn't flagging at all. But then night 2, we'd been out, had a few drinks, came back, was sat in front of the TV at 11 o'clock, and I was like, what am I doing? Just go to bed and just get up at 6 o'clock. Like, you know, there's only like, why am I staying up? The reason I'm staying up to watch it is just to put snarky comments in our Discord. You know,
yeah, they were great. I really enjoyed it.
That's basically the whole purpose for sitting up and doing that last night. So I was like, I think the world can live without those for one night, and I can live without needing to watch this in one go at fucking midnight for the second night in a row. So yeah, I did set the early alarm and got up and rattled through most of it first thing.
This is the line everyone's saying, JP. Everyone's saying, if you put that, I think Matty said that actually on the audio update, if you put the best bits of night 1 together with the best bits of night 2, you know, you get a crack on WrestleMania. I mean, why is that the take? Why is it not? If you put the worst parts of night 1 together with the worst parts of night 2, it'd be a fucking shit WrestleMania, wouldn't it? We saw that. I mean, it is true. It was very much a WrestleMania 2 halves on both nights, and it definitely wasn't the poster child for a 2-night WrestleMania. I think it's maybe spoilers to say. I imagine we're all going to agree on that, even if we agree or disagree on the better and worst bits. Even Matty had to be a little bit critical of the night 2 stuff and some of the stuff that came later in the night as well. And it was almost like it was the early in the night stuff that was very much the struggle on night 1. But yeah, there's 50% of something in there. I think that part of the conversation is true.
I think so, yeah. I mean, but that's sort of stating the obvious, really, isn't it? Why isn't there just a one-night WrestleMania with proper built matches?
Might be the answer.
that are decent, yeah. Well, and obviously the opening part of this is sponsored by WatchWrestling.co.in, isn't it? And I'll be throwing these sponsorships in there as well, because I've sat through enough fucking adverts and seen enough adverts as well to be living in some sort of Black Mirror dystopian hell. Really,
you sound like you need a Snickers, JP. Calm down.
Well, I'm desperate for a Minute Maid, but instead I'm sponsored by San Pellegrino. So, yeah, there we go.
Everything's sponsored, isn't it? If Cody came up with like an additional American flag tattoo, but on his head for Snickers or Mars bars or something like that, it'd fit. There was a fucking lot of that across these WrestleManias, and I'm not one who moans about the breaks and the long breaks between matches, especially when if I was a Matty or I was a Hamflet sent us a couple. He actually live called us from his little booth that he had. We're going to be talking about that on Benno and Hamflet, the VIP experience. I believe the What Culture lads got there. He was having the time of his life, and when you're there in that building, it's great because you can load up on the caviar and steak and whatever else he was eating, or Matty can load up on his $21 Cokes while he's at it. But I was watching it live with Steph, and she was just like at the end of a wit's end by the end of Saturday when it came just to those. It is the long breaks between matches, and a lot of it's like there was a long video package for a match with Phoenix had been popped in the show on Saturday afternoon. We still needed a 10-minute video package for that. We still needed a video package about Randy Orton, despite the fact we didn't know his opponent. It passed the limit for me across this weekend, especially when it is a long 2 nights. On top of again, that's the other thing, you see a lot of people talking about that. Oh god, what a long WrestleMania weekend! All of those TV shows I've been watching. I was like, no, we were going since Wednesday with JP, so that adds into it as well. You kind of just want them to get on with it at that point, and even I had to concede on some of the pacing of these 2 nights.
I can accept it on standard PLEs, that are 5 card shows and that are generally 2.5 to 3 hours. You think, well, that's not so bad. When you're getting up to 4 hours, and well over half of that is adverts. And I get it's a necessary evil. I don't mind stuff being on the ring or on the turnbuckles. I could give less of a shit, really, if I'm honest with you. But it's just the way that
they should have been doing, in fairness, from a cold-hearted business point of view for years.
Yeah, exactly. It works, and they need the money. And Endeavour have leveraged them in the way that they're going to try and cash in. But at the same time, like, it doesn't make it an enjoyable viewing experience for any TV viewer because it's so much. And I know that when you get Americans complaining about this, and over there they have to deal with adverts before the end credits. So you just think, well, why the fuck would you bother? Like, if they're complaining about it, then you think, well, this is somewhat excessive. It's not even just like it's in the corner as well. It has to be. Michael Cole has to do a whole ad read as well. So it was excessive to say the least.
Well, Grapple Spotlight tonight is sponsored by Dude Wipes. Shout out to our fantastic sponsor. If you want a wipe and you're a dude, get yourself a Dude Wipe. Apparently, we need such things in the United States of America. But I think that's been a big complaint. I think the pacing of the 2 nights, and like I say, wherever you stand on, the positives and negatives of the 2 nights, I think everybody recognises that there's good and there's, in my view, a lot of bad across those 2 nights. But I think the thing that what surprised me the most, like getting up today and reading the feedback and such, is even like the WWE adjacent talking heads have been giving grief about the main event last night and the Cena and Cody match. It's almost like they've been given a green light. Maybe Raw will bake this, and it turns out that John Cena's mission in WWE right now is to go out there and have bad matches, and that's how he's going to break WWE or however he worded it at the presser last night. But after start there, Garrett, that's the big take this morning. I think even they have it even on the post show. I think they were acknowledging that it wasn't quite the perfect end to WrestleMania over the 2 nights. Again, putting very much the heat on John Cena, but there's a lot of truth in it. Like when you have sat through those 2 days, and that's what comes at the end of it. No Rock is obviously the headline there, and I think them wheeling out Travis Scott out there. Dennis Rodman, he is not, as he made his very, 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 very long entrance at the end of WrestleMania last night, and made a lot of people, I think, even more of a mindset that Rock was about to follow him out. When you don't follow it with that, when he is the deciding factor at the end of your WrestleMania, I think it's no wonder that a lot of people are in a bad mood this morning when it comes to the 2 days worth of shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one because it was everything that I expected it to be, which was shit.
Bad.
So, yeah. So it was. So it's sort of like a hard. Like I almost think like it's that thing of like everyone being negative about it, and it's that my just initial feeling is, what, was anybody expecting it to be good? Like, because I certainly wasn't. So in many ways, I wasn't disappointed. It sort of met my expectations for what I thought it was. Thought it was going to be, but the whole thing there at the end, like Travis Scott, you're at least expecting something or somebody else other than a pure non-wrestler who's he's been involved in that previous angle there, but you're totally expecting some different thing to come out of it. Especially though, as like people will talk about WWE main event style, and you're kind of watching this match, and you're just so conditioned now that WWE main event style in the 2020s is just wait for some fuckery at the end, isn't it? Basically, it's just like ignore everything that's happening, and then something's gonna like happen at the end, and then that'll be a finish. So it's a far cry from somebody needing to learn how to work the main event style. But surely, I was gonna say surely they've had enough time to think of something that would be significantly better than this in terms of weaving something else in there other than Travis Scott. But equally, they've also had a fucking long time to think about the John Cena heel turn, and have done absolutely nothing to try and improve that along the road to WrestleMania TM either, have they? Kind of. So I don't know. Maybe there's just a lack of brains in the old brains trust there in old Trips Towers.
That's the thing. It's going to be easy to blame Dwayne, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that PR over the next week or so, and he did an Instagram post in the JP saying he was in Hawaii, was he not? Which makes people more think he's going to come out, like, just because that's just wrestling, isn't it? Becky Lynch pretty much did that earlier in the night for her. It's a big surprise, so I think it made people even more think he was going to be in town. But I'm totally with you guys. Like, if this is the situation that we're in and Rock has fucked them round, you got to think of a better plan. Like, because it's like of the three of us, I'm most tuned in to go and no, actually quite like Travis Scott, Huncho Jacks had a cracking album with him and Quavo, who was front row. But that's the problem. He should have been front row with Quavo. It's like he's a bigger star than most of the people he show in like these front rows, but not that much bigger. Like, it's the equivalent of Charlie Brooker, like, jumping the rail and getting involved in the matches. It's the equivalent of, like, Jon Stewart, I was going to say, from SummerSlam a couple of years ago. He's not that much bigger. It just makes you question, like, so if he's getting involved, why is everyone else not? Like, why is he special? Because it's not been explained. Because that's the problem. Like, with all the Rock nonsense over the last couple of months, we've never had an explanation of why he's physically involved, why he's so, this partnership has come up with him, Cena and Rock, and why we should be scared of him. Because at the end of the day, you've just got like a lanky, skinny bloke taking his time, coming out with a shit knockoff hardcore title. Look, like, couldn't be less physically impressive, could he? Could be less, like, physically a threat. But we're treating him like he's like this gigantic special thing who's gonna affect the main, the outcome of the main events of WrestleMania. And when the way he affects it is just a fucking belt shot, which, like, happens every week on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. It's not even like you said there, Gareth. It's not even like they've gone back to the drawing board. Okay, Rock's not here. We do have Travis Scott. What can we do with the parts you've got here? They just did the lamest version imaginable of what they could do with the parts they had, and you add onto that the lack of good storytelling, capital letters story, over the last few weeks to explain why Travis Scott is involved, or explain why Rock's not on screen, or just explain why Cena's making the decisions and saying the same as he does. It's just it's no surprise it ended the way it did, JP.
And I think as well, I completely agree. I think there's a lot that needs to be laid there's so much needs to be laid at Triple H's door, which I'm perfectly fine with doing that, by the way, because it seems like his focus was about making him the center of fucking attention and not doing the job that he's meant to be fucking doing, which is booking the card.
It doesn't do a job.
No, well, that's true. He doesn't do
not
jobs,
even at the Hall of Fame,
or his fucking job. Like, I mean, and that's where we're at with this. Like, it's like you said, there is no, like, he had time to think up of this stuff. Wrestling bookers are known for having to be able to think on their feet when shit happens that night. He had time since Elimination Chamber, and if Rock was never going to be there, there was time to come up with alternative things.
Yeah.
And instead, what they've got is, I mean, I don't know, getting some stoned bloke to walk for 10 minutes down a fucking aisle. I mean, that's just what you can do. Grab me from 2017 and say, "There you go on, lad, you're going to interfere in this match and
I think you'd have done
crash." I think I'd have done a fucking better job. I'd have happily fucking bumped.
But taking a better bump as well. There wasn't much going with that big bump either, was there, for Cody? His big receipt.
Nah. And to lead to what? Like, are you excited about the direction of where this goes in? Because I heard there was all manner of alternative theories. What happens if The Rock doesn't appear? Then you might get some new stable or something that comes up in between. And you go, well, at least then you got wrestlers involved at that point. Yeah. But instead, you've got this guy where he's not going to be around week to week. He's going to get, like, there is no explanation for any of this stuff happening as well. And you've got the main protagonist missing in all of this, which just makes the whole thing, like, ridiculous. It's hard to think how this doesn't leave a sour taste in the mouth. Defending it, and even, like, I hear people defending the match itself, and it was at the standard I thought it could be at best, which isn't good. So it was like, oh, okay. I was sat there waiting for shit to happen. And when that happened, I was like, you're fucking kidding me. And then it just cut to a Netflix screen. And I went, oh my God, that's what they've gone with. And then straight on the fucking Discord to just read what people are fucking talking about it this morning. So I was like, Jesus Christ.
I actually thought...
I mean, to me, it's just like... Surely to me, it's like booking 101 as well, is that, Cena's not going to be there every single week. So surely you want somebody who can be there every single week and can, like, set something up, who's now like a block in the road between Cody and, like, getting to John Cena. It's like a perfect opportunity to put an actual wrestler in there.
I
And
thought
it could
that's
be
where the
someone
Heyman
new.
stuff was going.
It could be something new. It could be like pick random person from NXT or something like that who's just a guy who's massive who has to just be there
Hank
in
and Tank.
between in between them. Like, but it's like, but like you say, there's nothing like when it comes to sort of like the what next. You know, you just sort of like left, and it just sort of it smacks as well as being poor in execution in the moment. It just sort of smacks of being poor in execution of thinking about the story and where it goes and what comes next and things like that. Just really, really weak. And you know, to be honest, when you look at the booking in the build up to this WrestleMania, and you look at the approach to some of the matches and then the way that they did pivot and things like that, doesn't strike me there's a lot of ideas fucking going out on there. And they're talking of, there's an advert there for some TV show where it's like behind the scenes of the writers and that. Well, what are they all doing? Are they all outside having a ciggy for fucking 5 hours or something? We've just got to sit and watch them having a crack about the watch on TV the previous night, because they're clearly not doing any thinking or ideation or writing or anything like that. It's fucking
maybe they are, and then Dwayne just comes in.
Dwayne
comes in, puts his feet up on the desk, and goes, "I know what we're gonna do, lads. Travis Scott," and then we just go from there. But even then, you're totally right. You can't a lot of the blame is laid there, but like you've got to have plan Bs, and like a lot of the plan As for the other stuff, this WrestleMania build weren't there worthy. So like I don't even think like Triple H gets away with it there, and like I do think the bad booking and a lot of the bad segments specifically to this feud led to some of the crowd reactions at the weekend that we talked about it with SmackDown on Friday. I think a lot of it is just that, you got a lot of traveling fans and your belt fans who are just gonna, wouldn't it be fun if we all, this one worked, get behind Dominic Mysterio, and that one worked, and that one feels a bit more organic, a bit less organic, kind of felt like, what we're gonna do? We're gonna cheer John Cena. Not that there's really any reason to cheer the performances, at least, of this heel John Cena, even ironically, and we're gonna boo Cody. There's been a conversation today on our Discord about like the idea of like, is this another, is this a rebellion of like similar to the Vince years? I don't think it's quite that. I think it's less a rebellion and less just people weren't invested in the story that was being told in front of them. And yeah, I think it's one of those as well where like if we let it bleed into the match itself, you alluded to there, and we'll talk the two main events first before we go through the other days. I thought they might have been getting somewhere with the match. Like, I think it was hamstrung by that. I think lack of investment in the story they've been telling, and lack of, like I say, just clear narrative as to, why each person is on each side, why Cena's a heel, why he's got these allegiances, and a lot of, the crowd just sitting around waiting for the big near falls and waiting for the big interference spots and assuming Dwayne was going to turn up. So I think that hurt it too. But I actually thought it was smart. Like, they spent the first half of the match, I'm sure you can go through, Gareth, there's a lot of slow plodding Hina seal offense, like double axe handles, and if we wonder what John Cena as a heel looked like, it looked like you'd imagine John Cena as a heel looked like, a lot of very, very basic offense. But I thought the smart thing they seemed to be doing was just go to the near falls quick. Because what's a big stadium WrestleMania match staple? It's your big near falls where everyone pulls shock faces and the crowd just get into the to and froing of it. And they went to that relatively early, and it seemed smart. And I thought they might, even if it was just Undertaker Triple H style, just 2 count kickoffs out of like finishes spamming, it seemed to be like they were going in that direction. I think that stuff was starting to work, and that stuff might have papered over the cracks of the first half of the match, which wasn't particularly worked well by Cena there. But again, they were up against it because that layout of the match that they did relied on the people going crazy for near falls, or one of the two of them, and it just felt kind of like watching two heels, because like there was neither of them were really getting cheers. The fans were just having a go at both of them, and they weren't necessarily, with the drama of Cena of Cody coming from underneath. They came close to grabbing them, but even when they got there, like I say, all the Travis Scott stuff happened there as well, and that had less of an impact because of what came before it. So yeah, it was just a bit of a mess of an in-ring match for me as a main event, Gareth. For me as a night 2 main event.
Yeah, and I think a big, you sort of like say about obviously there was that sort of plodding start to the match that obviously right from the off, Cena's red heel book 101. He's lent it off Jack Perry and decided to just go out there and powder a bit on the outside and just do like your basic heel tropes, sort of with not much substance and things behind it. But I think the crowd reactions, like helped it not work for the crowd because they became so almost like immersed in what they were doing as opposed to the match, that it then just sort of took away from when they were trying, how many fucking AAs was there that were hit and things like that were like kicked out of and stuff, that people weren't, that they weren't buying what they were being sold, I don't think, sort of, through the match there. And not only were they not buying the moves and some of the finishes that were set up with the big moves that were going to hit there, they just weren't buying the roles these two people were supposed to be playing. And it's one of those odd scenarios that you find yourself in that becomes very, very, it becomes dangerous because obviously Cody's been in this position as the top face for such a period of time and been held in that esteem, and then obviously you do the Cena turn, and then when at WrestleMania, when what should be the biggest heel moment John Cena has since the turn, the crowd feel like they're completely with him, or at least 50-50 with him, in a lot of those different ways. Then you detracted him from your baby face massively there, and then once other crowds start to see your top baby face getting boos and negative reactions against John Cena, then they're the kind of things they become like addictive almost, don't it, to future crowds, like in a week down the line, 2 weeks down the line, and it becomes a harder sell, and it becomes a harder to put that into fruition.
Yeah, and that's the damage that's done here, because like Connor says here, he's asking, why they're booing Cody, genuine question. I can't really give you a reason. I don't think it's organic. I'd understand if it was organic, to be honest, like, because he could come across quite heelish Cody and ingenuine, but it's not seemed to affected him at all during this title run. It's literally just this Vegas crowd, this weekend, and again, maybe that's performative, maybe that's just a disconnect with this particular story. But it almost doesn't matter because I think the damage is done. Like, I think for me, JP, like Cody's been so well protected this entire time, and then you put him out there in this situation with this half-baked feud, and then you have him in a situation like he was here, made him to look a complete fucking idiot for Travis Scott and John Cena to get the best of him. They've spent so long, like, getting him to this point and so long making him the guy. Like, it's not been undone in a night, but it feels like damage has been done.
Oh, damage has definitely been done with this, and I think it's an unholy combination of things. It's people not being necessarily mad on the feud. I think there's elements of boredom and frustration in the crowd. Like, if you think of some of the shit they're having to sit through before they even get to this point, they're going to be like, and particularly for the main event of Mania, they're going to be fucking tired. And it's just like it feels like it's a draining experience, and it almost feels just like the company feel, because they've earned so much money and they're doing well from a business perspective, they can kind of feel like do whatever they want. There's an element of arrogance, I think, that is underlying in a lot of the decisions they've made, where they're taking a lot of the sort of fan base for granted. And this crowd, like you mentioned, a traveling crowd, they're going to come in and just go, nah, just not going to play ball. And they're going to try and get their bloody money's worth. Why? Because they've paid a fucking fortune to be there. So I think you're going to get elements of all of these kind of factors in there. And can Cody come back from this? Yeah. But I think there's probably elements where bits of his character is kind of what they've seen before, and they've, do you know what I mean? There's an element of like of somewhat of like repetition of that particular type of person, the sort of like champion of the people who the crowd have chosen and other things like that. And they want a bit of edge to it, and that's not really what Cody always has. He can do, he's better when he shows a bit of edge, but for the most part in this, he's had to repeat the kind of, and we've spoken about this on a week-to-week basis. It has been sort of the same sort of the same promos, the same sort of physical interaction. And it just made me feel at the end of all of this, it was like, imagine they just kept Cena as face, and they did face versus face, and they just went with it like that. And they said, well, let the chips fall where they may. And that would have been like a lot more entertaining. And then if they did anything substantial, obviously not involving Travis Scott, that might have been a lot more fun. But fucking hell, like they've just bad booking, really, really bad booking. And it's bad booking over a month and a bit, not just over these two nights, and not over this this main event on night 2 in particular.
You're on mute, Benno.
No, can't hear him there. Go on, Gareth.
Well, it's sort of, from that booking standpoint, it sort of just ties into probably some of the conversations that we've been not just both the finish of this, but then all the approach to Cody, the reaction to it, the where John Cena has been like positioned to this point, and from when he has turned up on Raw, and the lack of substance in those promos and things. So it's almost like they've cut the legs off Cena as a genuine heel to some degree, because he hasn't had the substantive nature of any content or any action to go behind what he's done when he's been turning up on Raw week to week. So they've faced that criticism for that 1 month period of Cena should be doing more. They'd expect more from Cena as a heel. I've had all this time to plan what he'd be, and actually it's all pretty meat and potatoes stuff that they're coming out with there. They've obviously then, with the way that this has then been booked into the match has suffered as a whole. So the actual WrestleMania main event match experience is something that's been massively negatively viewed. And then in the way there from a Cody standpoint as well, you've just made this guy look very much less than, so both in terms of in the ring, as if you're taking it kayfabe kind of thing, what he's able to do in ring has looked less than, but then he now looks less than in front of less than 61,000 people in the arena as well, and getting those negative reactions, which I don't know, it's almost like you've had this golden spell of WWE with the Bloodline, where there's been a lot of criticism and things like that, but it's managed to sort of maintain business metrics, and it's obviously through some of the commercial deals and things like that, they've been able to generate significant revenues, and they've been able to obviously expand their sort of presence over the last couple of years. But we've had these criticisms ongoing for a while. It's been they they're positioned here, they're improving, they seem to be better than in people's eyes, or a bit more than in people's eyes. But them criticisms that we've had, it's almost like they're starting to just filter through more strongly now that there isn't this crutch of this singular storyline that everybody's been eating up, along the way, and almost fantasy booking themselves along the way, and adding legs on legs kind of thing as the Bloodline story grows. Now, as that's kind of reached its natural completion there and then Cody, the Cody Rhodes reign, you've just seen it through the whole build that everything's just been, stripped away in terms of what's beyond that. Not a great deal, and there's the odd thing here that's been booked well in the run up, and it's fed into the match. But again, you're literally talking about very, very small amounts.
We've always said for a long time, like what is Triple H as a booker like? Competent. Now, if you want to see the high watermark of that, we'll talk about it in a bit. I think it'd be the main event of night one, where it does all of the things that you want a WWE big time main event to kind of deliver on. And you have your story, you have your kind of cake and eat it, and you can get away with those types of things. But here, it just felt like it was the worst kind of aspects to it as well. And it's riddled with plot holes. And I think that's kind of the problem, because I think, if you're there watching, like everyone else, you go, where's The Rock? Where is he? He's not there. It's like, well, why did he even initiate any of this storyline? It's that important that he's not going to bother turning up. And I get shooting a film with Martin Scorsese is a big fucking deal, but still, at the same time, you have to kind of try and deliver on that. And by having these kind of plot points in there, effectively, it was just like, just deliver a you people speech. And then next week, deliver it again because it's a different audience, and we're going to try and flog a few T-shirts. And it's just the levels of laziness that have gone into so much of this. It's unacceptable. And I think this is where, the rubber hits the road with how much you're charging people in the process. Mm-hmm. You're thinking you really are taking a lot of these people for granted. Now, I'm not going to predict any death of WWE, but think of like this was the first big WrestleMania on Netflix. You want people going away excited about it in order so they're going to watch Raw and the other PLEs. Are they going to feel that way at the end of night 2? Are they? I don't think they are, because unfortunately, and this is the other problem of having a 2-night WrestleMania. Already, night 1 is kind of in the rear view mirror. That's kind of even like kind of going away by the time you get to the end of night 2, and any criticisms they get from this, they would have to accept, but they're not going to, because they're just not. They don't view it that way, because, as we say, don't be a critic, be a fan, as Twatter H says.
And this is the whole thing as well, is the disjointed nature of it when it comes to the booking side of things. Obviously, we talk about The Rock not been available that night and not being able to pivot, on a week's notice, on half a week's notice or something like that, not being able to come up with something better. It just takes you up all the way back to The Rock being involved in the first place, and that really not having any sort of like substance to it. Just don't do it. Why do you need? Why does it need to be the Rock? And if it's because The Rock wants to insert himself into the process, then again, it just adds to that layer of disjointment that they've got around the whole thing. Is that if people are genuinely thinking about things and wanting to try and book things in a certain way, but then you've got that overbearing power that comes in and turns something down a different corner altogether, then what positivity does that bode for the future? Because it's just going to happen again, isn't it?
Well, if they're going to be leading, hopefully I should be back now. They're going to be relying on John Cena, other than obviously Jey Uso, the other world champion that we're going to get into from night 1. They're going to be relying on John Cena to be the guy, going forward for the weeks that he's there, and for that to be the main linchpin in the main story. And he's not shown any aptitude or any legs to make this role interesting. Nothing from the Cody feud gives you an idea that him versus insert any other babyface on the roster across this year is going to be any more interesting or any more compelling. Or you see him at the post-show presser, and it was funny him doing the whole that's just clickbait and refusing to answer questions. That's probably as creative as he's getting in this role, unless he shows some more creative flair under them or comes up with a more interesting dynamic for this character. It's going to be death across the year and across the this John Cena 17th title run that a lot of people have fancy booked, or this John Cena heel run across a year that I think after week 1 a lot of people got excited about. But based on the build to this Mania, I think a lot of that excitement and that a lot of that this is the the equivalent of Hogan at Bash at the Beach kind of talk that we got when the initial Cena turn happened, that's going to dissipate, because people are going to remember nights like WrestleMania. They're going to remember what comes on Raw tonight and what he does with the belt going forward. And yeah, I haven't got much faith in him coming up with anything creative or them booking it in a way that's particularly interesting across the year either. It's just, it's the worst possible situation to find yourself in, and that's what's come out of WrestleMania this year.
That title belt is going to be in a holding pattern until SummerSlam, and that is the way it's going to be. It's just going to be like a sort of month to 2 months of relatively nothing involving it, and then there'll be elements of involvement, and there'll be stuff where they're doing at SummerSlam, and then we'll leave, and then stuff for Saudi. Yeah, it won't even be for Survivor Series, and it'll be get to the end of the year, and then at some point you have to turn Cena face in all of this situation in order to end the whole retirement tour on a happy note.
That's coming. I didn't really mean if face promo was coming at some point. Part of me thought it might be coming as soon as last night, and they might have bought Mission, but that's coming at some point. But I mean, maybe they'll tie it into we can talk about the other big main events of the 2 nights, the night 1 main event and the outcome of that. I thought, okay, this is going to be stage 1 of Paul Heyman putting together some kind of Heyman family, and it's going to involve Cena, because to be honest, I think Cena could do with the help. If Cena had Heyman in his corner, maybe coming up with some interesting stuff and interesting promo material and carrying some of the weight when it comes to the promos, there might be some money in that. No inclination at this point that's coming, but what do we make of the big outcome of night 1, which was the swerve amongst swerves? Again, based on Matty's audio, we very much enjoyed from night 1. And in fairness, night 1 had the much stronger as far as an in-ring match goes. I think it's hard to say otherwise. Whatever we thought of it, I think Punk, Roman, and Rollins are the much more compelling WWE style main event. To be honest, that's kind of true of a lot of the multi-person matches across this weekend, and they were the ones that booking wise felt like the biggest problematic things going in. So it's quite quite ironic that the strongest matches were probably those multi-person ones, but that was one that did, I would say there's going to be people like us that we're going to pick holes in it, and I'm probably going to spend the next 6 months of my life trying to get to the bottom of, hang on, what was the plan? Why was a no-stakes WrestleMania main event built around who was Paul Heyman going to side with? Couldn't him and Seth have just sided together at some other points? Like, what was achieved by this? It wasn't like it was for a belt. It wasn't like it was for control of the company. It was just to do a big swerve on the night, and what I'm going to get told back probably over the next 6 weeks or 6 months is story capital letters and swerve, bro. I suppose is going to be some of the defense there as well. But what can be said from the other side is it was something that delivered on the night. It was something that did have, in that WWE spectacle stadium main event style, people living and dying in the crowd by each of those moments. As slowly plotted as it was, Heyman low blowing Punk, and then low blowing Roman, and then doing the whole Shield like callback thing and joining Seth, and all of that shock face, emoji crowd front row stuff that we got as a reaction to it, kind of tells you that it worked in the build. And I think the likes of us are going to be sitting back scratching our heads going, yeah, but why? But maybe they could tie it all together with the Cena stuff. Maybe they could make it all make sense. But that felt like the type of WWE that maybe isn't for me, and you got it, but the type of WWE based on our correspondent that was there live and the live reactions there, the type of thing that was catnip. So maybe that's a positive direction coming out of it if you can find a way to be interested in Seth Rollins as a top line heel when Cena isn't on TV.
I mean, I guess when obviously I was on the air a few weeks ago, and I touted that as a possibility, didn't I? Of like Heyman.
You're the first I heard saying that. A lot of people said that afterwards, but you were the first, mate.
There you go. I'll take my victory lap while I'm. It's not the only reason I came on the show tonight.
See you later, mate. Good having you. Take care. See you next WrestleMania over Friday.
But I think part of my thinking was at that time was like, well, CM Punk's got to be a babyface. Roman Reigns has got to be a babyface now after that mega heel one. So you need the heel to, and Seth Rollins has been neither here nor there. So I almost felt like they needed a heel to be going against CM Punk and Roman Reigns, because both of them having to stay popular and stay babyface. And I think this possibly in the short term, where we talk about, planning and booking across the card and things like that, I don't think it necessarily maybe needs to immediately be something that is around a title. I think it's a good opportunity to have something that's going on that's not about the belt, and the fact that you can have like Punk and Rollins having matches, like singles matches. You can have Punk and you can have Reigns and Rollins like revisiting that side, and it just gives them a couple of like different angles and a couple of different lanes to play in, over the weeks of TV coming up, and like PLEs that they're going to have like over the course of the year. So I think it gives them a lane there to move in that doesn't need to be about the belts altogether. I mean, it does as when you look at things and you sort of like take that step back, and obviously like it's wrestling, and you're like, well, why did that happen then? Why didn't it just happen earlier? Why didn't it happen before, or something like that? Then why didn't then we don't need to have that element of deep thought and things like that that's gone into it. It's wrestling. Like at the end of the day, it's better when we do have those nuanced elements that feed into it. But I just kind of my overbearing reason for like thinking that was that it just gave some other alternatives. So again, it worked for me. To be honest, I wasn't picking the bones out of the why not, what's come before. It was something that actually I was like, well, it's got good crowd reactions there. The match has been good in the build up to like making it happen, and then it's a fresh direction that gives them something else to kind of talk about, write about, and set up as we go forward. So overall, I was pretty. I won't say I was like super high on it, but I was high enough on it.
How about you, JP?
I think given most of what had happened on night one, I was grateful for Small Mercies, which was a match that was compelling, even if so much of it was spamming big moves, but it was all timed. Again,
WrestleMania main event stuff, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It felt like WrestleMania main event. And you would have thought, given the two before, and when we'd done the preview show, that it would have been all about the night two. and night one felt like, oh god, this is as lazy as anything. But the three of them and obviously Heyman as well, they'd worked out what was going to be actually a good match, and that worked, and that kept that audience compelled. Ever since Gareth had said it, if I felt like Cillian Murphy in Inception, where there was just like the fucking nugget was never leaving, and it affected my bet as well. So, well, I have to bet on Seth Rollins to win this as well. Didn't win either of those bets. Thank you, fucking Charlotte Flair and Bianca Belair. But get into them in a little bit. And I'm also slightly annoyed that the two best matches were two triple threats, which I generally hate multi-person matches as well. But that delivered. Yeah, it was so overly drawn out and melodramatic at the end. But in many ways, they'd earned an element of goodwill by the time they'd got to that point. And I was like, I can see what's coming, even if I was incredibly distracted by Roman Reigns' turkey teeth. Like, it was just like, I found them, they were just so glaring. It was just like, Jesus Christ.
Even when his mouth's closed, you can see them. That's how bad,
Incredible. I wish I had like white teeth like that, it's, following into a British stereotype. But it worked. Whereas night two, it didn't work. And you would have thought, after seeing how night one worked, why night two wasn't given that level of thought? Why wouldn't you speak to Heyman? He's still employed by the company, for God's sakes, and go, what can we do in this situation? And it might just be, well, actually what you need to do is you need to get some heat on another wrestler, and that can set up who Cody takes on next and things like that. Even if it meant, I don't know, spoiling a nondescript surprise on Raw or bloody, I don't know, Raw or SmackDown, or doing something along those lines. But at least night one had that. At least that ended, and by the time it ended, you kind of thought, well, the people there they're gonna forget about a lot of the shites they had to sit through earlier on in the day, because that main event delivered. And
they're going to remember that moment. They're going to remember the Jey Uso moment, and other things are going to be forgiven. I think, at least from that night one, that was kind of my right and take coming out of it. I think that the issue for me was just in the build to it. I don't think they did a good job of, again, it was a match. We all joked about it. It was over the custody of Paul Heyman, and it was your WrestleMania night one main event. I just don't think it ever had the stakes really for the spot that it was in. But what we should have relied on, or probably should have thought going in, was, yes, but it's still Roman Reigns, it's still CM Punk. To his credit, it's still Seth Rollins. And then when the bell rings, and then when the match goes on, they're going to make people feel like it's a match with stakes, and they're going to make them feel like these moments matter. Like I say, for me, it was just, what's achieved, really, other than Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman gave you a moment, but maybe that's all that needs to be achieved in there. And I do concede, like Gareth has said there, it does set you up to potential blood feuds there, obviously with Seth versus Roman whenever he's back on TV, and obviously Seth versus Punk. You can run that one more time with Punk wanting to go for Heyman as much as he wants to go for Rollins. I guess the other problem though there is that you've got to build a lot of TV around Seth Rollins in the coming weeks, especially when on the other the other side you've got John Cena as well, champion, and then on the undercard you've got Jey Uso as well, champion. Although I wonder how long they'll keep it that way. I wonder if that's what's coming, some kind of Seth Rollins getting his world heavyweight title back, and we go that direction. Like I say, it was just, I could kind of tell in the building it was working, and it was much better than everything that came before it. Just for me, that lack of stakes was a bit of a problem, especially when it's the Mania main event. But I can't fault the work. I do think, for a WWE big time match, unless you've got anything more on the match itself, Gareth, thought the match itself did deliver for what they wanted. Those big kickouts, those big moments of story with Heyman there, post the big kickouts, and all of the work in between. I think they did make it feel like a main event despite all of those misgivings.
Definitely, and I thought they put together a really good match, because again, not a huge fan of triple threats either, but you could tell that in the way that say for example the John Cena Cody Rhodes match haven't necessarily been thought out the same way. Like, I think this one having CM Punk in it, and I'll give him some props. I'll like Seth Rollins to some degree. I think put in his position, if he's probably sat down in a room with CM Punk and they're trying to figure out some things here to make some cool spots happen in 3 ways and working Roman into it and things like that. But a decent sort of little group of people thinking about that, and thinking about little callbacks and things that they're building in there. It was no surprise to me that you had that you had in the weekend where you had Brett and Steve going into the Hall of Fame there, that we started off with that Punk and Seth sort of brawling into the crowd like early on. I was just first reaction to me immediately was like, oh, this is just the start of the Brett Steve match here. Obviously, you've got Seth giving Punk the sharpshooter later on, and you've got like Punk clawing into the mat as Steve clawed into the mat, prior to passing out there as well. So you had those little fanboy callbacks there that Phil's fingerprints were all over there in terms of working them in, but. I just thought some of the double team spots and three-way spots that they build in, just like nicely, just sort of like creatively done. I thought they like set up that Doomsday device at the hits. That was really well worked to get things into that position. I thought that was a fucking outstanding spot where Roman went for the spear on Seth. But then Seth turned it into the pedigree in midair and then stomped him to the 2 count.
Timed it well.
The timing on that was impeccable, wasn't it? Like literally everything from the bump Roman took to the the speed and height of the dive and everything like that. It was absolutely like exceptional stuff there. And I think there was just multiple instances of that along the way where they just obviously. There was the spot later on where they did the triple down, where you had like Punk hit the GTS, Reigns speared Punk immediately after doing that, then Seth stomped Reigns straight afterwards, set up to work into the finish as well. Again, the timing on that was so well done, and then because they'd all spammed their finishes at various points in the build up to that as well, it was almost like it was those. Finishing spamming was sort of built to that crescendo of that moment of the triple down, and the crowd went bonkers at that moment as well. So well put together, those things there. And like I definitely walked away from this match as saying there about being positive about the finish and the possible direction that could go. My expectations of the match itself were massively exceeded to what I thought, because I was just thinking, how is this going to work? These three, coming together. I've been dissatisfied in some of Punk's work. You never know what you're getting with Roman, and in terms of turning up the character stuff too far and things like that. But I thought they had quite a nice sweet spot really overall.
I think if they'd have gone, the one-on-one route for, like we kept talking about in the lead, I think you would have had a higher stakes, bigger feeling WrestleMania main event. But you probably wouldn't have had the match as good as this with the three of them in it, and having the positives of the three of them. Seth, for every negative I can say about him, he is good in these positions. He was good as that third man. He did provide that kind of up tempo part of the match that you weren't necessarily going to get from Roman, and you weren't necessarily going to get from Punk at this point in his career as well. Yeah, it definitely exceeded my expectations, and not just because of the obviously the entrances as well, which I very much enjoyed. Matty's first live WrestleMania involving Roman Reigns coming out second to last, rather than our Phil coming out last with his living colour, obviously live performance and his full. They even played the old Punk kill switch engage theme for you, Gareth. On them, I'm sure there was a tear or two shed in your house, Joe. Apparently, Punk was crying backstage watching that back. It was real to him, damn it, coming out last at a WrestleMania. Again, I wish it was for more, but that stuff was catnip for me, and it probably put me in a better mood for that main event than I probably would have been based on the undercard on night one.
The only tears that were coming out of my eyes at that point were tears of laughter at Paul Heyman playing air guitar behind Living Colour, like on the screen. I was like, oh, there you go. He's a cool moment, and he's a massive greasy fat man in a suit playing air guitar. Like, just don't do it, Paul. Just stand at the side and don't detract.
He got off of his makeup on Punk's lovely grey hoodie as well, didn't he? Yeah. You could see it all. Like, it just came off. Like, fucking hell, he's caked in that stuff there. Maybe fake tan, but it looked like makeup to me. But anyhow. But yeah. Any other thoughts on the match, JP, or should we look at the rest of the undercard?
Go to the rest of the undercard, yeah.
Well, there you go. There's the positive thing we're going to say about night one. Let's get into some of the negatives that came before it. Obviously, you want your Royal Rumble winner to open things up, and of course we opened up night one with an opening match, Jey Uso and Gunther out there. I'll try and leave the Grapple Civil War aside, and I was trying to do that. I was trying to open-minded to a Jey Uso Gunther match, and obviously, you can't help but see it across the weekend, and even in the WrestleMania kickoff, and just in general, like seeing these crowds go wild for Jey Uso. That was always going to happen. Like, he is, as far as like a I call him a cult babyface to this WWE audience, and the amount of people who are probably, you know, of those, probably 50 odd thousand, not quite 60 odd thousand people in there who were there thinking about this moment when they get to enjoying like the big party of both Jey Uso coming out and both Jey Uso leaving. I think the people there got that. They got their money's worth, and they got, you know, again, listen to the audio on the Patreon, what they wanted, the outcome they wanted, which was Jey Uso going over, you know, obviously 5-year story, of course, being paid off with Jey Uso. But I think this match sums up the problem with the rest of this card in that the bell has still got a ring, and we have still got to have a match in between it all to get to that finish, to give you the big entrance and to give you that finishing point. And I think this match, above all others, exampled that as good as Gunther is. And I think there was some good work in this match, particularly in the first half of it, from Gunther himself as a heel. You're still relying on Jey Uso to be able to deliver in the big spot and have the big match. And don't get me wrong, he didn't shit the bed in quite the way that the Jimmy Uso match shit the bed last year, or the Roman match shit the bed at the tail end of last year. But I think this match kind of showed the limitations of an act like him in that, yes, he was over coming out. Yes, he was over in moments in the match. But I just don't think he's a good enough worker to get the crowd behind him in the spots that matter. Because I think the big complaint coming out of this match for a lot of people is the finish, and it's him choking out Gunther. I'm not even bothered about that. Like, I've seen that point made by, I think Chris Lene made it in one of our chats. Like, Gunther loves that finish. He's done it with Ilya before, hasn't he? I think he's done it with a couple of people before. You know, the idea of the big bully getting his comeuppance. Like, it's story capital letters, but it's not the most subtle thing in the world. But, you know, it's something they laid out on TV. They had him choke out Jimmy. They did that whole really good angle with the blood. And I think the idea was, and I think that's what it was in Gunther's head, was that we're going to, you know, I'm the big bully. And after I did that to his brother, wouldn't it be like the perfect kind of, you know, flip it on its head, and he actually gets the better of me, the bully, and chokes me out. I can see that idea not coming from Jey Uso, not coming from some writer, coming from Gunther itself. The problem is it relies on the work being done in the match to build to that point, and that finish just came out of nowhere because I don't think they did the work in the match to have, you know, maybe Jey Uso's selling wasn't good enough underneath Gunther to create that sense of desperation to get to that point in the match. Or maybe it's Gunther. Maybe Gunther's work wasn't up to the standard it often can be in these big spots. Either way, it just felt like a match that was an entrance, some stuff happened, and then there was a finish that kind of came out of nowhere that made some poetic sense that you can play in video packages, and then with the celebration with Jey. And I say all that fully in the knowledge, JP, that might be all that was needed. That actually is probably a success, isn't it? But I think those weaknesses of it are what hurt it, and those weaknesses of it are what stopped this from, you know, being a genuine main event, from being a genuine Jey Uso gets his world title spot. It's what makes it very much an opener match, and remind you of why Jey Uso is a very over act that the crowd do love. But this is probably him hitting the head on the ceiling of what you can do with him as a solo act. What's it?
Short term, yeah, obviously good bit of business. There's no legs in this because eventually people get tired of the act. That's the reason why, and particularly when it's like a groundswell of support for someone who is like an underdog type figure. I was thinking like of Bret Hart, weirdly, because like if Bret Hart couldn't go in the ring but the crowd really liked him, you could have had like this kind of moment where he wins a world title, and then what? He has to defend this on a monthly basis, and he is the bloke who's going to be around, so he will be regularly defending.
If he keeps the belt, they might homicide him, and he might drop the belt in a couple of weeks.
I think he's going to end up losing the title by SummerSlam. I think that's how far it goes, because effectively, when it is moments, they're ethereal. They'll disappear like tears in the rain, to quote Roy Batty, because that's what this is. People get bored of an act. They loved Cody for a while ago, and you can see how things go. And I think at times they've, like, you know, we think of Cody, Kevin Owens and things like that. They've managed to get stuff there. But I was watching this match going like, where's the fire, man? Like, that was the thing I never got from him.
Deliver, yeah.
It was the moment to deliver. And like you, I'm not bothered by the finish, but you have to do something for those 16 minutes in order to try and, even if it's just like selling as if your life depends on it, and then you just push to a point where you just violently come back and you just absolutely take this guy out. Like, you never got any of that stuff. This felt like to me, I was watching this and I was thinking, yeah, this is the high point. after this is going to be a short run thing. Next year, he'll be in a multi-man for an IC title, and people will love to yeet.
He'll be back in the tag. He'll be back in the tag. But nice little tag wrestler. Anyway.
If the tag meant too much in it, but it didn't feel like, if you think about it, all of this is meant to be like kind of somewhat of an epic journey, and none of this was epic. None of this was epic. And he can't do epic. So,
and it's still a nice story. They've got a nice moment that again the people invested are going to come out of it going, wasn't that like a nice undercard story that was told? It's a nice, trinket at the end of it. He won the world title in name only. You can say main event Jey Uso had his big match, even if it wasn't a main event. But the thing is, they've traded in the big spot, which is a Royal Rumble win, and the other big world title match that they had on the weekend to tell the story for Jey Uso in this lower, part of the card. That's the trade-off. Whether it's worth it for the moment and all of that, I think there's, people who agree more with Matty normally, Gareth, probably saying that's it, that's enough, that's all we needed. We wanted this from Jey, and we got exactly what we wanted. But if you wanted, for Jey to take that step up and for there to be a little bit more beneath the surface, I'm not sure if that's necessarily what we got in the end.
Yeah, and I think it sort of comes back to the points that you've both made so far, really, and it's about Jey's really his inability to perform beyond that level. When he's been put into this position, like we often talk a lot about, wrestlers will be given an opportunity where it could be one match they have on TV, it could be one feud they get put in or something like that, and some wrestlers are capable of grabbing that and stepping up to a level and sustaining that at that level. In reality, this should have been Jey Uso's window of opportunity, as this has built for him to take this world title and become seen as a genuine main event world heavyweight champion player. And I don't think he's achieved that. I think it's good. I think it's good that they've had this moment, this payoff at the end of this storyline. Again, you talk about fan service quite regularly and things. I think it's needed. I think it's fair that this was a thing. But is this the start of Jey Uso having a 1-year title run that has a series of massive, drawing matches or high quality matches, or we sit here in a year's time and go, fucking hell, Jey Uso now feels like he's tiers above where he was this time last year? I don't think so. He's managed to elevate himself there, and I don't like. What
did you think of the work? As far as the match goes,
I mean, JP used the word fire, and that is the word that I totally, I just feel like myself. He just needed to just like bring it more. There's the whole thing sort of in the. I talked about it with that promo the other week after it took that like brilliant savage. Jimmy took that savage beating on Raw, and it was such a great angle, and you needed that more fire. And then the interview the following week didn't have that much sort of fire about it. And then here it was like, I was like, right, here's your opportunity to take it back to him and absolutely kill him here on the big stage. And it was just lacking. He's just lacking that kind of like aggression that he brings. But then it's the babyface fire that when I felt like Gunter was doing his job here with the heel beat down at points and things, and you just wanted a bit more from Jey when he's coming back, to just get the crowd to really want him to slay the giant, slay the bully kind of thing. And I don't think he achieved that. I think he had the positions to be able to try and do that, but he just hasn't got it in his locker. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a lack of charisma beyond the word yeet kind of thing, like and it's the word yeet is the over part of the act, rather than him like dripping with natural charisma or something like that. I don't know if he just doesn't know how to actually connect via what you do in a match to pull the crowd in. I don't know, but it's not like it's a one night problem, is it? It's something that's been picked up on and talked about for quite a big period of time. And I'm the same as you, Benno. I didn't have a problem at all with the finish of it being whipping out BJJ as I said there, pulling out his rear naked choke skills there. But the big problem I had with that finish was not that was what he used to win. I think it lost the moment, because like I heard Matty talking about everyone's up and everyone's eating and things like that, but on TV at the time, I don't think the crowd realised it tapped and things, and I was waiting for this big like yes, and to see the whole crowd. Like I think I always pictured in my head Jey Uso wins the belt, and you just see that crowd behind, like hard cam see that whole thing. And it didn't. It was like delayed kind of. People were sort of like looking and then the bell ring and then it sort of filtered through. It almost felt like it would have benefited as a moment from it being the three hitting
Seeing
the mat and then everyone's kind of up. And I think
everyone sees it at the same time.
The visual of the three and everyone jumping, and then you'd be jumping straight into bloody Yeaton, wouldn't you? Which would have, I think the visual would have been much better, because it didn't strike me as being a strong visual in the moment on TV when it happened. But obviously they'll play around with the video that they've got and things. They'll cut a couple of seconds out and suddenly everyone's Yeaton kind of thing immediately, and
it's your ultimate test in whether it's the moment versus matches conversation distilled into like this, isn't it? And like the arguments will be, well, you got your moment, that's all that mattered. But I think the counter is and that's what WrestleMania is. You're building to moments, absolutely, but you're also building to matches. They take up, outside of the ads, the chunk of the show. There's still, I think we found in 2025, even with the most overacts, still a level you need to hit. And like I say, on the absolute, I think you famously said last year, Gareth, on the Gunther and Sami Zayn match, which I did like. Wasn't in the top 100 of the Gunther matches based on cage match. This is in the top 500 of Gunther matches. It's way down the list, isn't it? The lower end, unfortunately. Although he did take your advice, Gareth. He did pop it. He has been eating a few pies the last while. So that was good to see. Chunky Gunny.
I was loving it when he hit the splash off the top and I could see his boobs wiggling on the way down. I was like, good lad.
It's the only way that spot works, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a skinny lad doing off a splash from the top. Who cares? Like, you want him to have that little bit of weight. I was, glad to see it. Maybe that's a purposeful thing over the last while. I'd take him just winning the belt back and we just pretend this didn't happen. I'd go to that too, but maybe we'll see what happens.
Can we do a story where he just goes massively comfort eating in order to kind of get over the loss of the title?
Get over the loss.
Just so we get him all back and go, by the way, my name's Walter. And we just go back to that.
I've grew to like it. I think I prefer Gunther to Walter now. Don't tell anyone. They're both terrible names, aren't they? You're not naming your kid Gunther or Walter, are you? But anywho. So that was our open, and I think we'll be brief on, there are a lot of the rest of this undercard. Like, does anybody have anything to say about the New Day and the War Raiders? Like, we all know it shouldn't have been on WrestleMania. We all know they didn't put the work in to make it a WrestleMania match, and it was shown in the building. Like, nobody there gave a fuck. It was completely silent. It reminded me of some of the lesser over matches, actually, from like a SummerSlam 92, or from a bigger old stadium show. It just felt completely unearned, and it's not like we even got the big E moments at the end of it. It was just a match. Heels went over and that was that.
Astonished by the booking of the New Day. Just thinking of the reception they got when they turned heel and the promo on Big E. And you just imagine, you put the belts on them straight away and then Big E comes out effectively to cost them the titles at WrestleMania to some new young tag team. Let's just say Fraxium for argument's sake. And you throw them into the mix. Like that then would be fun. That would be a moment, and these fuckers love moments. And this had no moments. No.
Don't know what was achieved. Like, giving War Raiders a run out of Mania, like, to silence. Like, but what you get out of that, New Day have got the belts now, great. It just, Mate, it was an ending story, and it wasn't worth it for the match at the end of it, and it wasn't worth it for the moments at the end of it. Just, I think universally, I don't think anybody has much on this one.
It doesn't help that the Viking Raiders were dressed like toddlers, going around like some sort of like, oh, here's a fancy dress box, rather than dressing as a princess. Here's like a fake sword and a fake crown. It was just like, what the fuck is this? The War Raiders.
So I'm gonna be shocked when they find out that that's not what Vikings actually looked like back in the day. But anyway, they'd have to read the history book first to find that out. But yeah. 1-star match that had no place on the show. Unless there's anything more for you guys to say, we'll move on to one I think you've got a bit to say about, Gareth, which was Jade Cargill and Naomi. Like I say, I think we were mostly positive, at least in as far as matches go for this WrestleMania. This is one that did have build. It did have a big moment. When you go back to a Elimination Chamber, and it had a bit behind it. But again, the bell has then got a ring. I mean, I'll go to you first, Gareth. I think Jade is definitely. I'm not saying she's Hogan at a WrestleMania 9. I'm being careful what I say here, but there's something missing from her at the minute. And obviously the outfits were a big part of this match as well, and that both of them looked to be struggling throughout, including Jade in a weird Giant Gonzalez-esque bodysuit that she was wearing here. Again, I'm not alluding to anything. I'm not accusing of anything, but she didn't just seem the full Jade Cargill here, and I don't think I've agreed with you, to be honest, Gareth, like going into it. I think I've mostly been still happy with the presentation of Jade. I think I've more often just put the blame on her. You know, we are talking about someone. We talk about her like she's a trainee. It's been like fucking more than 5 years since she debuted on Dynamite. She should be better than this by now. And I put a lot of the blame on her, and I mostly thought WWE had presented her still as a star. It's just been her that's floundered a little bit. But I don't know, something felt missing in the presentation here. I don't know whether it was her, I don't know whether it was the company, I don't know whether it was the performance in the match. But yeah, she did look ordinary for me, and I've not been someone to say that going in, but I know it's been something you've definitely been feeling in the build to this, Gareth.
Definitely, I think, like, you know, we criticise Tony Khan for absolutely loads, but I think the one thing he has got right, you know, in the entirety of AEW is making Jade Cargill feel like an absolute megastar. Every time she was on screen, she jumped out. You know, you forget the work, just the visual presentation of her, the way that she was put in situations, the way she talked, the way that, you know, the placement of you know, certain interviews or in terms of certain angles that happened and things, the tone that she talked to people in and things like that just felt a bit more superior and better than and things, and just bled into the character, you know, so well. Like, but I just don't see it here. To me, she had this like mega aura in AEW, and it just feels like it's been stripped away from her like completely. And now, I mean, yeah, you can talk about things from a size point of view and things. I was looking like visibly different of late, but it's not even that. I think it's just the way she carries herself. She doesn't carry herself like she's the biggest star in the room anymore. And like, you know, I think that was when you can't work, and that is a fundamental part of your act. Like, it's really, really important. Now she just feels like, to me, any other member of the WWE roster, to be honest. And what's weird about that is like, I remember we having them talks, you know, on Grapple, going back to when she was in AEW, we were saying, imagine her in WWE. Like, imagine with their production values and the way that they would like present her in terms of like ring music and in terms of entrances and things like that, just to sort of really jump off the screen even more so, and, you know, turn the volume up on something that's already at 10 to beyond that. Like, and they just haven't. They've like, to me, it's just, you know, it's toned down back the other way, and it almost feels a little bit kind of like classic back in the previous era of WWF of knock somebody down to build them back up again in a different vision or something like that. And, you know, I think what we saw from this match is there's, you know, her wrestling hasn't improved, and that was always going to be always going to be a thing. Was she'll go to WWE and the, you know, WWE will teach her how to wrestle and things. I don't think she's made any progression in her wrestling at all. Like, you could see like Naomi just talking her through this match and spoon feeding her like through spot to spot to spot. Like, it was.
You've got to ask questions, haven't you? If the world's richest company with all of their resources, like, and she's still at this level. I mean, maybe the blame's just her. Maybe it's as simple as that. She's got 2 left feet and she's got no aptitude for it. And it turns out the criticism I think a lot of us would lay at AEW at, like, you know, surely she should be better by now. Surely she should be going on excursions or something to get better. Sure, you know, thinking of all of these reasons why she wasn't getting better. Maybe the reason's just her. But it is surprising. You are right. Yeah, I would have just assumed like they'd at least get her to the level of, you know, James, or at least a little level of, you know, a competent, maybe a more competent WWE in-ring wrestler, and she hasn't gotten there. That's where more my criticism, because I think she was presented well at Elimination Chamber. Like, that was brilliant. I thought she came across like a star there. Maybe in the TV, I see a little bit more what you're saying, and maybe here, you know, wheeling out the fucking weatherman with the background that comes right out of StreamYard, JP, to for her intro here was not. I'm surprised that's not your background tonight. You could just have the stadium in the background, the little weatherman stood there. It was StreamYard levels, wasn't it? It wasn't WrestleMania level. I did think they'd do more, and it did make me lean a little bit more towards what Gareth is selling there, if I'm not fully there.
I think that's a knock on StreamYard, mate. Honestly, I think I've got a better fucking backdrop than what they did for that as well. And I'm assuming it was a link to X-Men and the Storm character and things.
And we should say as well, staying here in the chat. By the way, the Raw Raiders match most likely there to advertise Clash of Clans, and yeah, there you go. There's your corporate synergy. But, you know, again, think of a better reason to have them on the card then if you're gonna do that. But,
yeah. Tell a story. I just think we're going back to the Jade Cargill stuff. It's just like, well, what would a good booker do? It'd be like, okay, we've got this talent, we do want to showcase them. What's the best way to do it? Short squash. What are you that bothered about protecting Naomi that it has to go 9 minutes and a bit of back and forth because she can't fucking sell? And I'm with Gareth on this. I think she's regressed. At least in AEW, what she had as a character, she had attitude. Like along with it, she's very anodyne. She just feels like she's complete. Like any of that kind of like bitchiness that was a core part of her AEW character has just gone. None of that is there. So what do you end up with? It's because before then it was a look and an attitude. Now it's just a look. And the fucking performance center is full of people like that. And you can go through all the various things they could have done. Should have put her in NXT. It's all very easy in hindsight, say, but put her in NXT, have her work there, have her kind of develop on TV, just even for 6 months, have her come up as undefeated NXT Women's Champion, and then go on the kind
she
of
might
rampage.
have still not got better, though.
You
know what I mean? Because like these... I agree. I think I would have, even with all that considered, made them more of a squash. But, like, these WrestleMania matches are practice within an inch of life. She'll have been in that ring all weekend going through all the spots here. And she's still out of place for everything. She's still got left feet. And it's still Naomi, like, literally, like, stretching to keep it the whole match as good as it even was here, which was bad. It's just... I think that just says that the blame lies with her. But, yeah, weak stuff.
Credit for the practice, though, on that spot where where Naomi jumped from the second and she caught her midair and then into that jackknife. That was cool. That was a cool spot. I like give him credit.
It was the danger, though, wasn't it? It was the way like she turned around and just fucking laid her down. It was like, Jesus Christ! Like you don't see that in WWE. I think I like that element of it. But yeah, Connor says she got WWE look, and that's what made her stand out in AEW. Now she's in WWE. She just fits in. Yeah, that's probably a good way of looking. I don't think AEW were perfect either. They had it on Rampage a lot, and they had it. Remember in the pandemic shows. They had it in the crowd. I was like, don't do that. Like, she's like literally like the most special looking person you got on the roster. They made mistakes too, but yeah, it does feel like it's not been the layup we thought it'd be with WWE. Unless you got more on that, Jacob Fatu and LA Knight was the next big match on the show. Got Haku a bit of camera time, so I'll take that from it. I'll go briefly with my thoughts first. I thought this was a strong match. I'm just not sure it was the match, again, I would have booked. I think I would have, like you said there, JP, about Jade Naomi. I think Jacob's just so hot right now and is such a monster star character that I don't think it necessarily does him favours going mostly 50-50 with an LA Knight. As over as LA Knight is in his own right, and as much as it's weird, it's like, that did produce one of the better matches on this show. If I was just looking at it pure from a sports, pure sports, did they have a decent star rating match that I could even go like a 3.5 on, which is quite high for this WrestleMania? I could say that, but I think context matters, and in context, I think that's not what Jacob Fatu's first WrestleMania match should be. I think Jacob Fatu should have really blown through LA Knight in a lot quicker time than he did. It had good moments in it. Obviously the LA Knight counter with the weird stunner thing that he did looked about as good as that spot possibly could. I can imagine young Matthew in the crowd losing his mind as that spot got hit, and they mostly worked quite well together, and it was just from a sporting point of view, if you wanted them to go out there and have a 50-50 match that was a quote-unquote good match, I think it achieved that. I just think what it lost was what's special about Jacob in that he's a monster and he's a force of nature that should be undeniable, and it just took that bit too long for him to go over for me. But all in all, nice moments in general. The real life side of it, seems like a cracking bloke. Criminal convictions aside, seems like a wonderful man, and you can't help but knowing the real life story that last year's WrestleMania, he's in the crowd throwing up the wands during the Jay and Jimmy match. There's literally footage of him doing that, and here he is, less than a year later, and it's not Solo Sikoa that's in the big WrestleMania match. It's Solo Sikoa coming out during his entrance and fucking off backstage, because very clearly Jacob is the undeniable star in the act. There's all those positives, and it was nice to see him get that reward. It's just I think I would have had him smashed through, and him and LA Knight always felt like a bit of an odd choice for a WrestleMania match. But any thoughts from you, JP?
I completely agree with you. It was what I had down in my notes. It was also the point I fell asleep, but it might have just been on night one, partly because it's LA Knight, and I'm like, I do struggle. But if you're going to give this a rating, it's a 3-star match, and I might be being a bit generous for it. It was perfectly fine for what it was, but it should have been something different. It should have been him squashing him, because he is special. The crowd react to him. This is like a guy who should be tearing through people with this US belt, kind of having a similar reign to what Bron Breakker did with the IC title, really. They should be doing something kind of similar with Jacob Fatu before then looking to move him up the card on there. Not as, but like, it wasn't offensive. I'll put it that way. It wasn't like, these two have shit the bed. It's just that LA Knight is going to give you a certain standard, but he is going to get the crowd involved and the crowd like Jacob. So all of those factors go very much more in its favour than some of the other matches on here.
Yeah, it's Simon says here, WrestleMania is known as the showcase of the perfectly fine. It kind of is these days. I don't know, what's your thoughts on it, Gareth? I think for me, again, I think it was the type of match, again, in build. Like, I feel like I don't want to see necessarily Solo Sikoa out of a WrestleMania match, but I feel like WrestleMania should be the big payoff to everything that's going on. I feel like the payoff to Jacob and Solo would have made sense at Mania. Instead, they went this route to, give Jacob his big win and move him on. But yeah, what did you make of it going in and coming out of it as far as it? Again, it's a positive story, isn't it? Jacob Fatu and the fact that he's at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's just me being overly critical. I'm just not as high as and excited on Jacob Fatu as I've heard you guys be over the weeks, and I know.
Fair enough.
MLW biases aside, and different, preferences, like coming in there. Obviously, your desire for him to be ahead of Solo Sikoa.
Me and Court are starting a podcast.
Obviously, blatantly is. But I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how this title run goes now, because something just doesn't. The dots aren't joining up for me, like a little bit with Jacob Fatu. Things just seem a little bit off to me. Like, that 50-50, that goes without saying. Like, you know, he shouldn't be going 50-50 with LA Knight. It's a cliche I'll always say is, you're looking at a match at the end and going like, who's benefited and who's came out worse from it. LA Knight could have eaten a 2-minute loss and come out of it the next day and come on TV and said some catchphrases. Nothing would have changed, like, for him, like, at all, probably by losing in a quick way. I think Fatu going 50-50 with him for that amount of time, it made him look less than. It made less than the killer that he's supposed to be, like this wild killer. And then because you've got a match that's running to that time, there's just things about the way that the match was put together that then sort of take away from that wild man character, that sort of killer side of things, where he was sort of like a bit slow and methodical about some of the stuff that he was doing early on, and I'm thinking, no, he's a fucking wild killer kind of thing. Like go after. There was the spot where he was, it was after he'd come off the top and LA Knight had caught him, and then it was like the 1-2, and then Jacob Fatu gets his hands on the ropes. I'm like, why is this wild killer breaking pinfalls by grabbing the ropes, being like a cerebral ring presence guy kind of thing? Like, it just doesn't fit at all, like the way that works. And when I sort of like took things away, like looking at it at the end, right now, like, I think it's been talked about in the last 12 months has been like, he's someone you can plug right up in there in the main event picture and go against Roman Reigns and things like that. There's nothing right now to me that fits as like main event kind. He doesn't look like the way he's working and things like that just doesn't feel like a main event character at this point. This is where I then now look at this title run and I think, okay, yeah, this is where then he should be like quickly elevating himself throughout this reign. So I'm really intrigued just to see how it goes, because clearly there's a look and there's clearly like a uniqueness to the rings, the working style of the way that he hits spots and things like that can be that level, but he feels a million miles off it to me personally at the moment, and he definitely needs to be, I don't know, like those dots need to be joined in a different way to me. He needs to be fucking battering people, killing them, on a real consistent run. Because even in the build to like there's some of the stuff that with Strowman and things where they were like working those matches, they just didn't connect like in the way that they should. I don't know. It's a bit.
I think in a lot of ways what you're tapping into, because I kind of saying you're getting lamped next grapple lads, maybe by Matty. Like I think that the thing for me with him is it does seem confused, the presentation of him, because we're in Triple H WWE and everything has to take 6 years to get there. Like, he's past the point that he probably, if we're telling the story, should be a babyface by now, but he's still in the heel stable, but he's kind of a babyface, so that's confused. Like, and I think is he a monster in it? Like, he came in really as a silent monster, but then they discovered he could talk. So he is like, is he a guy that talks, or is he a monster? And he's kind of doing both. So he's trying to be all things right now. And I think what you're tapping into there, Gareth, is in that Mania match. We haven't picked a lane for him, so he's grabbing. He's like, it's a bit like a big magpie, just grabbing all different things a good wrestler in this good match would do, but they don't necessarily fit the character he's in because they haven't settled on a lane for him, and that's probably what they need to do. And that's again, it's probably a caution.
Yeah,
cautionary tale as to Triple H's long-term, more long-term booking.
Well, don't worry, he got to the end of August when he takes on Solo Sikoa.
Oh, they'll drag that out. Yeah, it will be them, won't it? It will. And there's positives to long-term stories. Absolutely there is. And you build stuff longer and it's a bigger deal when it happens. But these are some of the negatives where it is, dragging out and is a bit confused because they haven't picked that final lane yet. So, no, can't disagree too much. I mean, following on that.
And his fucking shitty mask that he was wearing on the aisle.
Someone should tell him no to that. Yeah.
I can't let that go unsaid. Like, awful. Just fuck that off. Like,
it's a discipline thing, isn't it? In a lot of ways, it's just
There was a lot. I mean, there's a bigger point on this. There's a lot of stuff entrance.
Oh fuck, LA Knight's car. We didn't talk about his dad dropping him off at school. Yeah. Like, what was that? Like, if you're gonna do it, do a Steve. And I know it caused some problems, but let him fucking drive himself. What a knobhead he looked like, just getting out of this car. Like, oh yeah, my dad's just dropping me at school. He's got a cool car. Hi everyone. Like, it's just so fucking lame, isn't it?
That look when the window came down.
He looked like he didn't like that. He looked like he'd asked, and he said, "Nah, you can't drive yourself, mate. Sorry, we need a man to do it."
There was a lot of stuff on a lot of these entrances that felt quite underwhelming, considering, including watching people fuck up skipping and stuff like that. What the fuck am I watching?
We'll get to that, yeah. The camera stayed way too long on some of those shots. Yeah, it's funny because I've seen that talking about people saying like, "Oh, they didn't do the big WrestleMania entrances." They did. They just weren't very good. Like, they did a lot of them. Yeah. I think a lot of people got big entrances, and a lot of the big entrances just kind of fell flat and weren't as big as maybe the idea was laid out for them. Cody Rhodes apparently really likes mopeds and really likes their little speed bikes. He was a big fan of Road Rash back in the day on the Mega Drive.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I was going to say Junior Kickstart.
I was more a Road Rash man, but yeah, that's it. I will speak on which, like I say, I was going to go into it the next match. I think it's the news story is more the talking point of the next one, and we kind of left getting to it till now, which was, as we all predicted, WrestleMania would include Chad Gable under a mask working not only Ray Phoenix, but with pride of place and getting time in a WrestleMania ring. Vikingo or Vikingo or however Triple H decides to pronounce it at any given moment. On the back of this, catnip for you, JP. Can't believe it dropped about an hour after me and you finished recording on Saturday night. This AAA story, which we're still finding like the details out on exactly what has happened here, and like for all intents and purposes, coming from Meltzer and some of the other reporting, it really is as simple as we alluded to. AEW got a show coming up in the middle of June with CML, Real and Mexico, so yeah, better buy that AAA one. Apparently the discussions have been going on a lot longer, but yeah, according to Cubs fan as well, who's been covering this too, like that's pretty much the thing, that the straw that broke the camel's back. AAA were asking for a fair amount of money, WWE didn't want to cave, and then AEW announced the show with CML, and all of a sudden they caved, and WrestleMania Saturday comes, and we're announcing the big deal. What exactly they bought, whether it's AAA or the company behind it, who's getting the money for it, are all questions. But I could only think of you, JP, when I saw no Earn, unfortunately, taking pride of place on TV on the pre-show on Saturday.
Don't worry, she'll be able to pay for 2 jumbo urns now, won't she, on the back of this?
Do you reckon they told her no? They were like, you know what, Jacob, you can have your mask, but no, you can't bring an urn. You haven't been here long enough. We're not having it. It's just a bit weird as she sits there in her sunnies and her death's there. She's like, she looks like she'd be a great character in a soap, doesn't she?
Yeah,
she'd be fantastic. What's her name? Is it Maricela Pena?
Maricela Pena, yeah.
Yeah, obviously the widow of Antonio Pena.
Oh no, she was Antonio Pena's sister.
Oh, right,
and
okay.
Her husband was the first Roldan, Dorian's dad, but they called him Dorian Pena.
That's the other end. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, which made kind of no sense. I mean, I won't that story. I was just like, Jesus Christ! I need time to talk about. Yeah, it was just weird. I was like, what the fuck? They've bought AAA. And the issue is here is that I don't think, and I'm not feeling sorry for WWE because anything bad that happens from this they deserve, but I don't think they know quite what they're buying into. CMLL, for all of its faults, is generally run. You always get the impression it's run the way a lucha company is run, and they're smart enough.
Big
to
arena
own
Mexico shows, they make the money,
and they own the arenas, whereas AAA is just a shit show. There isn't. You take away Vikingo, and how much talent is actually there on and yet could they find people potentially? But after that, was it Nina Hamburguesa? Shocking. He's it's been the same people for years. It's a really weird state of affairs for this, and it feels like if they're going to get anything out of AAA, it's going to be right. We're flying out Ray, Phoenix, Penta. They're going to be flying out everyone out to there, and obviously on that show in June, that's where El Grande Americano will lose his mask because it just feels like it's kind of set up for it. But also, it gets weird when it gets to rights issues because they're always involved in a lawsuit. They were suing themselves at one point, which is quite hard, and I think only the kind of thing a contortionist could ever think of doing. So you've got this weird situation.
Stephanie Vaquer's other issues with them, and she's forced to stand off over a very serious set of allegations. With a former husband, all of that comes in. You've got Andrade stood there looking. He looked fuming. He looked like, fuck's sake, what's going on? I thought I left this all behind me. You've got Phoenix and Penta, a penny for their thoughts. They're gonna have to go back and work AAA shows again. They're probably what we got out of that. We're on WrestleMania now. Do we really have to? Really? It's so bizarre. It's such a complete. Like Connor says here, we were so close to Jeff being a WWE affiliate. He was the mega champion, wasn't he? In AAA till very recently. JBL's been doing a lot of work over there, which I guess feeds into this stuff. It's so bizarre.
It's a really, really weird story, and it does prove, if nothing else, are we going to be getting an NXT Europe? I'm sure there's a couple of lads over here who are absolutely praying that WWE come in offering a fair bit of cash.
Lee McAtee's already been in the inbox, hasn't he?
Oh God, yeah, exactly. So you could buy us as well, but it shows that plan is going to be very much in full effect. That local globalization thing that's happening.
The Worlds Collide show sounded like a big deal, and it turns out, it's just the afternoon of what's the pay-per-view that night? It's like the afternoon of a big WWE pay-per-view. Is it Backlash that one?
It's with NXT, isn't it?
It's with NXT.
Yeah. So there you go. They've already pegged it at TNA level.
And it has always been like the Mexican version of a bad TNA. Not any successful TNA, and from a match quality perspective, a lot worse than TNA. And I'm talking current TNA, which is no great shakes in there. But
Money in the Bank, that's it.
And it's also that show ends, and an hour later, Money in the Bank begins.
Yeah,
and it's just and I've heard it's in the same area, and I'm just there thinking, LA's quite big. Yeah. By I don't think it's not like the two arenas are next door to each other or anything else. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to end up working, but it is. All of these lads who thought they got away from it, they are pulled very much back in.
Honestly, I was starting to think, for night 2, who's someone they could bring in to face Orton, outside of genuinely Del Rio, where there's a threat there. And it's good that he wasn't, included in any of the press stuff here and wasn't, pictured behind them. Hopefully that means they're going to give him a wide berth. But I couldn't think of anyone else who'd be interested in. Like I say, just the surrealness of, them all being stood there in suits and Vikingo's there in, in his full gear. Just stood there. It was so bizarre to see him on WWE television. So bizarre. Unfortunately, didn't give him a spot in this match. I think that would have been if his knees are still up for it, would have been a hell of a WrestleMania moment for him to do something. Maybe that's it. We got his best days, we got his gift days, we got that Kenny Omega match on AEW, so maybe it's no great loss, but what a bizarre thing for him to be posting pictures with Triple H and being the star that they're pointing to as the big guy they're bringing in. Wow.
It is, and it does feel like his moment kind of came and went, particularly with that Kenny Omega match. And then he went hell for leather, having as many matches as he could do in a short space of time.
They booked him terribly in AEW. They did. They brought him in for that match, and then week 2 he was in Battle Royals. And I know he wasn't their talent, but obviously you've got an attraction there. It did a great quarter hour, that match, sell it. They never did. But at that point, then it ceased to really matter. The injuries have clearly caught up with him, and he's not the same bloke either, is he? As seen in progress. I'm sure they've been, there's been Facebook posts about that a go-go, but he's he's not the same guy. So maybe WWE's good for him. Maybe that, he can work a slower down style, do less wild spots. But then, what is he without that? I suppose is the question. But he's the only real interesting talking point, isn't he? Are you bothered about like anybody else on the roster making the way over JP?
No.
Is there anyone?
No, I really don't. There's no one to me. Psycho Clown. Who is?
But isn't he like 40? Somebody said that he's older than you think. Not that that's old, obviously, very young for 40, but
And he's done and dusted like most of the guys there. They're old. They've been running effective. When we preview WrestleMania shows, they are effectively the same group of people in just a variety of just different combinations of the matches and nothing else. So, like, I think with
hilarious.
this, it is hilarious. They wanted to sell. They wanted to sell for the longest time.
Yeah.
They've
they were saying it on telly, weren't they? They made it a storyline. That's what the JBL thing was.
And they've managed to make out, so I'm sure they're happy and they're keeping their mouths stum for the time being. But in terms of like where it goes from here, there's a part of me expecting some sort of Noah announcement next, because that feels like the likeliest shoe to drop. Because then it'll be
We're
like
getting the two sides now, aren't we? AEW with New Japan, and then on the other side, WWE with Noah and Impact and Triple A, all the good ones.
And I tell you, I think AEW have got the better part of this deal. Yeah, they don't own CMLL, but when they do that show from Arena Mexico, it's going to look good. And CMLL have a regular conveyor belt of good young talent, a lot of which have sort of worked their way into AEW. But it's been like an arms race for lucha stars for a little while.
June's going to be very interesting, like when it comes to covering like these shows 2 weeks apart from each other. That's where the Wrestling Board of 2025 is taking place in Mexico via LA. But should talk the match itself. Like I say, Vikingo did look like a bit of a geek having to just there Ray Phoenix at the end of the match. Again, I really had this. We had this pegged as the work rate match of the night when it was Rey Mysterio. When they added Phoenix, I was like, oh, what an upgrade. Like him and Gable are going to go out there and have a great match if it doesn't get hamstrung too much by the comedy. And it did, unfortunately, for me. There was too much of that stuff. It was too much of, the stupid metal plate in the mask. And they just, unfortunately, I mean, I'm sure Ray Phoenix has made up. He got a big WrestleMania match and found out about it 2 days before. I'm sure none of this matters to him personally, but I think as far as presenting him on the biggest stage like a star, I think they made him look like a bit of a gullible geek, really. And I don't think the match was up to much either. If anyone's got any quick thoughts on that.
I mean, it was for what it was, for a short match with the time that they had. I thought that the work that they put into it, like within that time period, was enjoyable enough. Kind of on the evening watching it, I was like, yeah, I've got out of it what we got there, and like I think there was that thing of, for one, was Phoenix been treated like, okay, he's someone that we're going to shove into that position and put on WrestleMania and go into this match that felt like that's a big tick in the box for him, because it could have been another person on the roster. There's plenty of other LWO guys or something like that they could have pushed into the mix there to come and do a 6 or 7 minute match. It progressed that Chad Gable storyline, didn't it? Without it's that didn't need to come to an end at this particular point. Like, was it them two going out balls to the wall and having a great match for 15 minutes? No, sort of thing. But was it a sort of a little bit of a welcome relief in terms of the work at this point? I will say yeah, and like I have to call out that fucking 450 or whatever it was that Chad Gable did, where he nearly fucking killed Phoenix when he landed back first on his stomach. Like, what the fuck? Like, Jesus Christ! Like that. Oh God, that was like a killer little spot there. But I'm always a sucker for these storylines. Going back to your yellow dogs and things like that. Where I have my lame wrestling comedy sensibilities. Like, I always love a guy hiding behind the mask who everybody knows it's the guy, and he's pretending otherwise. So there you go. Maybe this is where my bias is coming here, and just suckered a little bit with this one.
Juan Cena coming back. Yeah. I thought this was incredibly throwaway, and I hate that metal plate gimmick stuff. I just didn't enjoy it in the slightest, and it was very, very short. It wasn't that I just think hamstrung obviously by the comedy, like you said.
maybe they're thinking about doing the big payoff in Mexico, but I just think on the night where Rey Mysterio is taken out and you have to change plans, maybe just change plans and have just for this night, Big Phoenix look like a big star and he goes over and you can do something more in Mexico later on, instead of just sticking to the. Presumably the plan was always that Gable was going to retain and they were going to do something down, mask versus mask type of thing with Rey Mysterio going on, but yeah, that's what I would have changed for me. But yeah, outside that, the only other in-ring match to talk about, we've got another segment to talk about, but the only other match was Tiffy and Lottie, and that also took place. Another didn't say that about Phoenix and Gable. I'll forgive Phoenix for wearing the red gear against a character who also wears red. A little bit confusing. Tiffy and Lottie just like the same fucking two people out there. Like it's like watching Aston Villa versus West Ham. This match, like two blonde girls in pink, both of which is execution in that. This match was particularly sloppy, so you couldn't pick it out from that. This was messy for me and not in like the good way maybe some of us were hoping for. It was just messy in execution. It was messy in the teeth that Tiffy lost by the end of this one. And I think I've got a sneaking suspicion, I think I'm right on the previous show, JP, that Lottie was penned to win this one and they just went, you've been a fucking gobshite, we're going to send a message here and you're losing. And she went out with a bit of fight, very clearly from a shoot sense and a work fence. Yeah. But yeah, what you got was probably the worst of both worlds for me. A bit of a clunky match that I guess put over the new star, but what's there with the new star is the other question.
I was watching this for all of the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
It was very. I wasn't.
We didn't get blood sport, did we? We didn't get butterbean, butterbean Minoru Suzuki.
At least Butterbean would have stood out in this match because at times I was just like, oh my god, this is just the Spider-Man meme. Like excessive, except they're just having a big fight between them. It was clunky as all hell. Like you said, I didn't really ever find myself kind of truly getting into it. It was more the point I was like, she knocked her tooth out. Christ, she has. And I went, that's not a fucking accident. Which kind of then sums up the problem with Charlotte Flair. If she's going to do this type of stuff, you can't rely on her. Like, you really can't. You can't certainly push her into these positions. And she's been around long enough where it's not fucking acceptable. Like she just won't do business, and she won't do business in that kind of like that proper way. It was. I don't know what Tiffany Stratton gains really from this ultimately, because it wasn't like the crowd were like, "Oh, these two fucking hate each other. We're going to be pumped for the match." It just feels like they went through spots and that stuff that was there, and then Lottie laid it in a little bit then towards the end, and then Tiffany Stratton won, which did ruin my bet. Admittedly, that was the only sort of disappointment for me. But yeah, just a weird, just a strange situation and strange match.
I think I'm the high man on this one, by the sounds of it. Like, I thought it started off really sort of like raw and wild and hard hitting, and obviously everyone's looking out for that because what they know from the backstage stuff. And I think there was I don't know, it did sort of like feel quite stiff and quite personal, very, very quick, I think, in the match, and that kind of got me into it to a little bit of a degree there early on. I think, like, you're not wrong to say bits of it looked ragged and sloppy, but to me, some of that helped it a little bit to me, like, in a way, like it. I don't think the match fell apart because of it. I felt like it made it look a bit more like a real, a bit more of a real scrap at some points in there. And I think there was sort of like there was just like a viciousness behind, certain things that they were doing there. When Charlotte hurt her knee and Tiffany was going after it and, chop blocking her knee and things like that. That was good. Or when she was in the figure four and she was like punching her in the knee and stuff that she just injured and things. So there was wrestling worked stuff there that fit, like, from that aggression point of view that came across there that I quite enjoyed. I'm not going to turn around and say like it was the best match in the world or anything like that to some degree, but I think it felt like a bit of a, I don't know, it felt like a bit of a gear change sort of for a women's match as well. It felt like it had that like level of aggression that was like, obviously there's that stiffness that came into it with the tooth and the bruises and the blood and things like that with, from a Tiffany standpoint. But I don't mind a bit of that. It just adds to it, I think, from that point of view. And then if you say what did Tiffany take out of it, at the end of it, I was like, Oh, I liked her on that promo the other week, whereas she was somebody who I had zero engagement to at all in the up to that point. Then, like now from this match, I was like, she's got a bit of a tough side to her now. She's got a bit of character about her. This last, she's got a bit of something about her, sort of thing, to go in there with Charlotte Flair and go toe to toe with her a little bit in some of the stiffer side of things. So, I think she's, well, certainly with me anyway, I think she's added an element of like toughness to around that character, and it feels like I bet she's gained a bit of respect backstage, more so than she probably had a month ago in terms of
putting a brave face on it helps too.
Certain things in the last month. I bet she's won a lot of appreciation with certain quarters backstage as well. So I'll give her. I'm not quite there for Tiffy time yet, but I'll give Tiffany Stratton. I'll give Tiffany Stratton a thumbs up for me on this one.
It was she did well in the presser post the show where she was asked about it, and she was just gracious. She was like, "Oh yeah, always a fan of Charlotte Flair, so it was a dream come true that I got to face her at WrestleMania, and what a great moment." And it was just like, oh, I love that. Lottie's backstage furious still about it all, but that's the way to play it. Be above it. So yeah, there you go. I can see those positives. That's kind of the undercard of night one. Obviously, as we've talked about the main event both nights, but of night one, we don't have anything more on night one other than, for me, the real main event of night one, which I feel like we build up this podcast for. And if images could talk, my God, what an image this one. If only I could press play on YouTube and not have the whole thing taken down. As your hero, mine, I was always a Brett guy, Gareth. I was never a Shawn guy. Always thought he was better. Shawn's not in his league. 100% agree. Brett's the man. What a fucking moment this Hall of Fame was when, because I was thinking it, watching fucking Steve Austin. And we'll get to, some of the undercard night too in a minute, but watching Steve Austin and Bret Hart just be on the stage like they were any two guys, I was thinking very clearly what Steve and Bret were thinking as they had a great little, it felt like off-camera conversation between each other, only for fucking Paul to come out, full music, get his full entrance, soak up all the cheers. This after Shawn had already got a full entrance as well, so that's probably what wound up Bret in the first place, if I know my Bretro lore, only for Triple H to realise halfway through celebrating with his music playing, oh yeah, I'm the boss, I should probably go and shake some hands and act like I'm gracious and loving of these veterans. But when he went over it, shakes Steve's hand, shakes Brett's hand, and Bret gives, like, honestly, got a demo. I was barely laughing at this fucking eye roll that we've got on screen here. Bret giving to Triple H, just like everything he was thinking was what we were all thinking as well. And Bret, what a fucking treasure that man is. He just can't hide it, can he? It's written all over his face, and he meant every bit of it, and he knew that camera was on too. He's still an old worker at the heart of it. Brilliant stuff.
Small details, mate. One eye roll made Triple H look like the biggest cunt in the world. Like, just made an absolute twat out of him while he's out there for his own Hall of Fame.
Incredible.
All eyes on me moment kind of thing. What a worker. In his brain, he was right back in there in that corridor in Montreal in 1997, back there, watching that gobshite walk around lion. Still holding on to those things in his brain. I would just kill to know what was said and things, at that point.
I can guess one of the words, mate.
The brass neck on Hunter, though. Like, I know that's a spot they've always done where the last guy comes out to music, but like, Bret and Steve are there. You know what I mean? It's like, and you're supposed to be the boss. Like, show a little bit of humility, maybe, for once, ever. No. And it was just fucking, we didn't even mention it. He opened the show as well. This was his second entrance of the night. The big nose cunt. That's probably exactly what Bret said.
And did the voiceover for the opening promo package.
Of course he did, yeah. Of course. Didn't come out during the main event.
But it's not about him. He's all about them. It's like, is he fuck? Like, Bret sees through him, and I fucking love it. Steve just thought, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to fucking upstage you on night two. I'm going to save my fucking fire for that. I'm going to cause a lawsuit that you cunts can sort out. Like, there we go. Like,
fuck it, we've talked about it. I'm going to play the clip because I can cut this out of the audio if need be. Like, it deserves an instant replay. It's just so fucking brilliant watching Hunter Schick. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, it's perfect. Bret stole the show. Little thing, got it. They're the things that matter. Oh,
absolutely. Oh, pissed myself. I was like,
best moment of the night.
it actually got me back on Twitter because I was thinking people are going to clip this and I'm going to be able to just sit and watch it and like watch it again. So it was I was watching it on repeat for plenty of the rest of the show. But great moment. I'd love to know what was said. It was the same as like at the Hall of Fame where they unveiled that sort of like trophy or whatever it is of half Bret, half Steve, and you're seeing them say something between them and have a little smirk and a little chuckle between them there, and you're just like, oh, I just wish wish could hear what was been said there, because blatantly had a couple of beers and just like ripping the pissy a bit brilliantly, and
everyone else kisses his heart, not Bret.
And this came right after Dana White got shown to the crowd and booed as well, so it was on a right little a little double run.
Twice.
Yeah, a little double run, and you know what? I rewatched that today, and they've sweetened them boos already.
Have they?
Yeah, definitely.
Unbelievable. Yeah, they tried twice with that. He was never getting a good response, was Dana White. But yeah, Bret and Steve stealing the show as only they can on night one. And Steve would steal it on night two as well. We do need to talk some of the undercard from there. And in fairness, as much as we kind of laid it in thick, and I think night one was, if it wasn't positive enough, was saved by that main event. It was a lot of quote-unquote fun, was that main event of night one. It was very much what you sign up for if you're going to watch a big Fed show. Night two was saved by its undercard. Like, it really was. And I don't think you got a better example of it of the other three-way match of the weekend, which was Io Sky, Bianca, and Rio. And right away they went out there and like everyone was feeling, a bit like, fuck, that night one wouldn't really fit. I think the bigger problem with night one was it didn't feel like WrestleMania. It felt like a Raw. It felt like a lot of those matches in the middle of that card just had no place on a big-time WrestleMania, and it didn't feel like it in a lot of ways. Night two started so well as far as making it feel like a WrestleMania and going out there and delivering and showing that, there can be very, very good matches in WWE. More often than not, they're in that women's division and they don't often get the pride of place to show it. Felt like they stole the show, the three girls here, JP.
Oh, they absolutely did. This was for me. It was match of the weekend for WWE. It was brilliant. It was a 15-minute all-out sprint. And like that crowd was coming to love Io Sky by the end as well. There was some like great stuff, and particularly having someone like Io Sky in there who's just so precise in everything she does. And it was, and it didn't have that kind of long drawn out story aspect to it that the night one main event had. And that's not to, and I enjoyed that main event, but this I enjoyed so much more because of its brevity, because it didn't fuck about. And it didn't really lose anything. And I think they made the right decision leaving the belt on Io Sky. Like, it just felt like she was, for me, like sort of a good part of the glue there as well. How over Rhea Ripley is fucking insane. Like, she is just so enormously over. I was quite surprised by Bianca's reaction, which didn't seem very, very big, but it was a bit of a shit entrance as well, which didn't really help. But I loved this. I just thought, absolutely, like non-stop action, a couple of really big spots. I'm trying to think of the one where Io Sky ends up like falling. Is it on Rhea Ripley's feet at that point? And it was just like, this is just fucking insane. And like the crowd they just wanted to watch something really fucking good on the undercard. And it set it up. And I think it carried into the next couple of matches as well, because that sort of like goodwill and momentum, it means a lot for a card. And night one never had that. All the main event sort of notwithstanding. But I thought this was absolutely great.
Starts us off in the right foot, Gareth.
Yeah.
First note I've written here is what you said, Benno. Is like, I felt like I was watching WrestleMania when I was watching this match. Like it was, and I didn't feel like that the day before at any moment. I don't think. Maybe in the main event when you get into the finish of that. But what a good match. And what I really liked about this is they've obviously been telling that story of the afterthought. Io Sky. It's been all about Bianca, and it's been all about like Rhea, and that's been something that's been on TV over the last couple of weeks. And then Io's had a little spots where she's sort of like lent into that, and I thought they just lent into that brilliantly again in this match, and it just really helped with it. I think as it started and Rhea and Bianca just like going for each other, and Io almost immediately having a bit of a "you cheeky bastards," and then just going like straight for them both kind of thing. It's like, I'm the champion, like I'm the best here, and you sort of like put me in the background. So I was always fearful that if she doesn't win in this match, what does it mean for her when she's been positioned as this afterthought, to the extent that they're even talking about it on commentary as well. So like the fact that she went over in the end, and went over like convincingly in such a good match as well. It just felt like the right end for this match on the night, but it felt like the right end for that little sort of like sub storyline that they've been telling there in the build to this three-way. But again, just some of the spots just smooth as silk. Like the one I've just written down here is that one is like where there was the moonsault by Io. Rhea got her boots up, and then like Io flew into a kiss of death from Bianca, like, and then Rhea broke the pin. What a fucking little, how well put together that was, and how well delivered that was. Like, thought it was absolutely great stuff.
I thought they got away with things as well, because I think I was very underwhelmed by the build for this, because it was just like, you're putting a three-way together because you're really like you're half-arsing your build for this and your booking, but the three of them being over and putting in that kind of a shift, and having someone like Io Sky as the glue that kind of holds the whole thing together, whilst also simultaneously keeping Bianca and Rhea Ripley as a match that maybe you'll save possibly for SummerSlam, but possibly next year's WrestleMania as well. And they got away with stuff here. They managed to sort of save the build, and they did it in a way which was really exciting.
Yeah, I guess they are both kind of said there. Like, I don't understand any crowd that turns on Bianca Belair. Like, I just think like she's so likable as a babyface, and so like I always say she's the person you should build like these divisions around. I don't know whether it was just a rebellious WrestleMania weekend crowd, or whether it was just the fact that Rhea's so over as she was kind of in this match that caused it. I hope it's not a sign of things to come, but I thought she played a role as like the spoiler in the match very well. I almost thought they were leaning into it at points where she was like about to steal a pin here, about to steal a pin there, and then it all kind of blew up in her face, obviously with the big finish with Io coming off the top and stealing it herself. I think they told a good story, maybe knowing what that crowd were going to be like based on SmackDown and based on some other reactions recently. But that aside, yeah, it was proper high level, at least for WWE level work, and they absolutely killed it there. Apologies for going off screen there, by the way. I could constantly hear somebody laughing in my ears, and I thought it was somebody outside. I was like, why are they just laughing over and over again? It's like a parrot or something like that. And then I realized the Brett clip was just playing over and over in my browser in the background, and whoever filmed it clearly just laughs at the start of the clip over and over again. I was going crazy then for a minute. I couldn't work out what it was.
Who can blame them? They were completely right.
It was
to
funny
laugh at it as well.
But I am back. There we go. Some tech issues tonight, but we are there. But yeah, Pat's been presented as quite unlikable and whiny in the build. Yeah, there is that, and obviously she's going to play into that whole, the whole story with Jade still to come as well. So yeah, maybe it is a sign of things to come too. But no, those was a brilliant way to start the night on night two, and I thought it continued in the second match. I say gingerly, no one who else is on the call here. I imagine Garrett's going to have the thoughts I imagine he might have about Drew's tweeting activity during this second match here on the show. I thought so. I laughed. Bit of a repeat, obviously, of last year's spot. But I think for their slots on the card, I mean, I do think Drew has done the work to deserve a higher up spot on the card. Don't really love them making that part of his character and him making it part of the constant conversation with him, obviously, with some real life side to it as well. And obviously this match was kind of in doubt going into the weekend. We didn't even have a graphic when we did the preview last week, because I don't think they were sure that it was going to be taking place. But it is a match that, whether it's good story or bad story, it's got some depth, it's got some long term. It's a long term rivalry. It's two people you believe, from a character point of view, do hate each other. It's two people who had earned this type of match, which within the WWE spectrum was relatively violent as far as a WWE match goes. It had even earned, the big entrances it got with the Slayer entrance, of course, for Big Dame Priest in there as well. Made it feel like a big time Mania match that didn't necessarily steal the show, but felt like kept the momentum going from the opener. As I wonder about whether I should throw to Gareth or not. Gareth, what did you think of this as the second match on the card?
Now, well, like you say, it had it had that story going into it that was something that was built out there, obviously with Damien Priest cashing in last year, and then So he's cost Drew the belt and has eliminated him at the Royal Rumble and at the Elimination Chamber as well. So, Drew's perfectly justified in his reasons to, have beef with him and want to go at him. And what better way to do that than when you hate somebody so much? Like, I think when you hate somebody so much, what I probably would do is dress up as a video camera to promote a corporate thing for my employer at the top there. I thought that was a lovely way, just bled into the heat of this match, and the level of rage and anger that Drew McIntyre had was that he would do that. He'd been such a good corporate team player there. I thought it was first class stuff for him, as opposed to the coolest man alive, according to Matty Edwards, Damien Priest coming down to Slayer. Definitely looking much better there, except for when he was in the ring and really just awkwardly throwing devil horns up the ramp, trying to get Kerry King's attention.
To acknowledge him,
he wasn't getting his attention, kind of thing, and not getting it.
But if both his hands were busy, how is he possibly going to react? That's what I kept thinking. I was like, does he think he's going to give you a wave? Like, he's got to play the guitar. Like, you need both his hands. What you want from him? That was awkward. Yeah.
But
poor Drew, can't buy a win.
I mean, bleeding into the match, like, it was positioned right on the card. It was for me, it was like in the right place where it needed to be. I thought that was an upside for it. But I personally, again, no bias aside, but I personally just did not get that heated feeling come out of the match at all. Like the work, that just didn't translate to me. And I think like probably an element of it was probably the match structure. I think the amount of time that Drew McIntyre was on top in this match, I thought like Priest got very, very little offense here, and like he was dominated to a degree that I thought Priest came out of it looking a bit weak to me by the end, because of the extent to which Drew dominated this match. It sort of felt like it needed a bit more of that like back and forward fight. It felt like, actually rather than it being a true fight, it felt like somebody in control doing spots, and to the extent that they're gonna literally lie down outside and take a selfie on a phone and tweet tweet about it, kind of thing, added into
rubbing it into his rival, come on,
this heated rivalry. But yeah, I thought I was like, it was a perfectly fine match on the surface of sit down, stare at the screen, and just this thing being going on that's inoffensive in front of me. But it felt like it could and should have been so much more. It should have been more vicious, violent, especially when it's called a Sin City street fight. This wasn't a street fight. It was a match, and it was a very one-sided match at that. So yeah, you knew I was never going to like it. But
no, I mean,
I'll put you together. Hopefully, they're justifiable reasons as to why.
I agree. I just don't think that's specific to these two or this match. That's just a WWE street fight, within the perimeters of that. That's what it was. It's less street fight, isn't it? And it's more used props. It's a prop fight, essentially, as well, like a big WWE match like this was. For me, the positives were that they kept the tempo going of the show. I think that was the more important point to me. But I don't disagree. But I think for me, that's a broader point of this type of match with WWE. There's always an upper limit to it, unfortunately.
For me, Gareth said about watching the screen and just sort of like mindlessly enjoying it. That's very much what I did, and I did find myself kind of enjoying it for what it was, because I had relatively low expectations. It wasn't a match that it could have been built for a really long time. This could have been like the end of an absolute blood feud of like last year, you took my title and all the rest.
I don't think Damien Priest could pull that off, though. I think if they went like 5 minutes or 10 minutes longer and tried to do a more drawn out one, I think we'd be saying it was boring, because it would be.
It probably would have been, but then maybe you would have got bigger spots. You might have got blood, stuff like that. But they were never going to do that. They were never going to do that type
Not for
of
the
stuff.
spots, yeah.
And instead, what it was is it kept up the momentum. They had the big double table spot. They had the Claymore with the chair. They had the selfie spot outside. And it was kind of mindlessly entertaining for that. And that was it. And I think for a lot of people, that's as much as I kind of enjoyed it. And I think for a lot of people who were there, they seem to enjoy it pretty much like that as well.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a part of like investment as well. It wasn't like it was a big blood feud, although the story is there and the history is there. I felt about as invested as Drew does, in this story. Clearly, he thinks he's above it, and clearly, I think he is above it, to be honest, at this point. But he's odd man out, isn't he, on this Mania weekend? So no, totally, I don't think there's anything wrong with the critique there. I think it is fair, but I think the main thing is it kept the momentum going in the night, and I think it was a good second match if you strip those things out. And I think unless there's more on that, I think that bled into the third match again. We were so critical of all the multi-mans on this show and the night before. Again, the multi-mans were very important to actually this show feeling, especially in this first half, feeling like it was building the momentum. The night one wasn't, and I think we, in fairness, we are consistent. We did say in the build to it, you could have got away with it. You could imagine it on like a WrestleMania in like the late 90s or early 2000s, but with bigger stuff around it. It's the type of match where you can do a 4-way for the IC title because we've got this big match later on. We got this big match later on. It was lacking that as far as a build goes, but in execution, could I say there was a more perfect match to go on third here to follow that one? No. And obviously the crowd wanting to get behind Dom, he's fortunately fell into that trap of being so entertaining as a heel that he's become a babyface to that audience, and obviously they're going to have to play with that now, but it did lead to a very unique atmosphere. And when you've got, Finn Balor, for his faults, 4 years older, by the way, than Terry was at WrestleMania 9 here all these years later at WrestleMania 41, in there, he's probably the weak part of the match. But when you got Penta in there, when you got Braun in there, and when you've got basically all four of them being able to run through their big spots and be a bit creative with it, it was the perfect match for the moment in the night. Add in the little bits of quote-unquote story you could do with Finn and Dom, and the crowd outright wanting Dom to turn on Finn and giving Finn the heat when he went after Dom. Whether they expected that or not, I think that really worked for the match as well, and it was the exact right ending for this crowd to put Dom over, and felt like a very, very fun WrestleMania match. And for me, we were 3 for 3 at this point in the show, got it.
Oh, 100%. Like, I think it was the other week when I filled in for you on the weekend show, and I think JP was surprised that I was actually like positive about this 4-way being put together, like when it was first announced, and I think sort of the best credit I can give WWE from this point of view is where I have been watching week to week of late, from Royal Rumble through to this, is that this was something where I almost felt like you were rewarded for actually watching week to week, because I've enjoyed the interactions between Finn and Dom that have been going on on the shows to this point, building up to this. Obviously, you've then had the Penta inserting himself into the mix around the IC title, and Braun Breaker just been absolutely great stuff. So I had like in my head of like what I thought this match could be, and I feel like it delivered on everything that I thought it could be, and I thought that I would want it to be as well. To me, it was like that perfect example of like elements of it that are serious, but then elements of it that don't need to be that serious because they bleed into the story, and then what you get almost as a big bundle is just a time period of entertainment there that's really, really good. And for me, I think all four guys come out of it just better. They're all four of them are like higher up, because I think it was a good end. It was a good sort of like step forward on the Finn Dom stuff that we've had there. I thought Penta looked like a fucking superstar coming to the ring, coming down the ramp there, and you compare him to what Phoenix looked like the day before. It was just worlds apart. Whereas if you were somebody seeing these guys for the first time on WWE, obviously not as familiar with them as we've been over the years, you'd be like, nah, that guy, he's the guy, kind of Penta there, and like. And I just can't get enough of Braun Breaker at the minute. Like, I think he's my favorite WWE wrestler by like a country mile. Everything about him is just, it's just a fucking beast, old school beast kind of thing that you just want to just see, just like killing folk, and when he's just spamming these big moves, and everything works. And then he just had the right people working around him for him to be able to do some cool stuff in this. In this match as well as then Carlitos kind of like bleeding in, and the part that he played, obviously with the with the spear and things like that. Just everything about this was just put a massive smile on my face, and I was like it. And this is another thing that just felt like this was WrestleMania. This felt like an old school WrestleMania match, like in the way that it was put together and all the some of the parts that went into it. Like,
Proper
Never,
mid
ever
card
thought-
match, innit?
Oh yeah, never thought I'd be saying that. You know, sit me down 12 months ago and go, "You're going to be watching a match here, and it's got fucking Dominic Mysterio in it. It's got Finn Balor in it. Like, you know, it's like Braun
I'd have said
Breaker
it with
at the
Dom.
time. At the time,
fella,
it was
Dom.
probably like turning down, and then like Penta, I was just so bored of in AEW by
Yeah.
that point. Like, and you're like a year down, like. You know, one of my highlights of the weekend. This loved it.
On the entrances, JP, like I loved Penta. Absolutely, I agree. Came out looking like $1,000,000, and you know they haven't nailed it with him either. There's been weeks where it's like, oh, he feels a little bit part of the furniture already, and you don't want that, you know, this early into his WWE run. But I agree, came out looking like a star. I just wish like Rick wasn't such a cunt, because how great would Braun Breaker's entrance have been if like Rick and Scott, like that WrestleMania 9 fucking graduation theme hit, and them two came out first and like stood at the side of the, you know, like his two bouncer uncle, dad and uncle waiting for him, and he walked through them. They've got to do that at some point. I'd say I hope, but again, Rick's a cunt, isn't he? So will he ever? I don't know. Scott's a cunt too, to be fair to him. But yeah, but he is every bit. And with Gareth, when we talked about actually this feud on that spotlight we did, like, for me, like, Braun Breaker is, as much as he's like the some part of Rick and Scott, he just feels very WCW. He feels very 90s. He feels like there's elements of Goldberg in there. There's elements of Scott's singles run there. There's just elements of like almost natural born thrillers, you know, that kind of like chunk of meat who'll just go out there and do bonehead, meathead things. Like, he's a blast from the past, and he is just so much fun.
It's like he's a mentalist, but he's not really a mentalist. He's not like the uncle. He's like, this bloke's like a proper fucking loon, but he acts like a loon, and he's very convincing. My only issue with him is the name. I just wish we just get his fucking surname right, and then we're actually at the races. I watched this and I just thought, have him win Money in the Bank. That's the option. That's the route you go down to try and elevate him into the mix. But you guys have kind of said it as well as I ever could do. This was just so much fun. I thought Dominic Mysterio would win because it just
I love Dom. I can't help it. I don't want to be one of those ironic WWE fans, but
no.
I just get so much entertainment out of him. It just kind of, he is a lesson that like not everyone has to be like the certain mold of, you know, wrestlers that we tend to like. It's like guys who go out there and are gonna have a great quote unquote match. He's a character. He's a gimmick to the bitter end. Like, this is what he is, and in every moment, even now as a pseudo babyface, he sat there on the post-show panel just being a cunt, talking about wanting to go back and get his chicken tendies. Like, you know, he's just like, he just lives and breathes this shit-hole character that's just, he's so, Matty will hate me for this, very 2025, he's very like, he's knobhead, like he's more knobhead streamer than Logan Paul is. He's that generation of like he'd be if he wasn't a wrestler, he'd be a big star on fucking TikTok. Like, he's just that type of guy, and I love him for it, and I don't really want him to be anything else. He's definitely getting better, don't get me wrong. In ring, his timing's better, and he was good in the spots he was in. But I never really want him to change. I want him to be like this mid-card character on the telly that does carry these little feuds and these little programs that you can do with him. There's just so much there to exploit. Maybe even with MJF as a cautionary tale, as a babyface, like going forward for a few months, even just as a novelty.
I think so. I kind of want a honky-tonk man style run, but just better work than what Wayne would ever fucking deliver into the mix, where by hook or by crook, he just keeps his titles. I even found myself watching the episode of Hot Ones with him and fucking Liv Morgan, for God's sakes. And I was just like, why am I watching this? And it is because I'm compelled by the guy. And
he's a little twat, isn't he? It's great.
He is.
I love it. But he reminds me of your little brother, like my youngest brother. Like, he reminds me of him.
He's a dick, but as a mid-card heel, he's absolutely perfect, even though the crowd are kind of willing him eventually to become face, but you shouldn't go down that route next. I just want him to keep the title for a while, inexplicably. And yeah, we could be bored of this in a few months' time, but it's the IC title, and these days, who gives a shit? So yeah,
that's wrestling, isn't it? Like, not every wrestler on I wouldn't want a wrestling company built up of DOMs. I'd want like actual good wrestlers around them. Don't get me wrong, you know, it's I'm not, you know, I don't think that, but I think you want people to be different. You want people to have different roles in your company.
That's the word. He's different. He's different to everyone else who is there, and it works. Different really works on this. This was just like a really nice combination. You're going to have so much stuff with him and Finn Balor, and then eventually there, which I'm assuming, let's just go SummerSlam again, and I'll be bored.
Let's just move on from that. Judgment Day should be done now. We've done too much of that now. Let's move on. But yeah. definitely.
Yeah, but Dom's is the type of character that there'll be some 14-year-olds out there who'll be doing a podcast in 20 years' time that they'll be affectionately looking back on him as this character at this time and things in the same way that we've got our own characters from our own youth that we've just got that irrational, like, emotional connection to because of who they were and things like that at the time. You can totally see it, and just the finish, the way he won it was just so in fitting with the character. It was perfect, like perfect way for him to win it as well, just stealing it there, just as right at the end, just
class. Well, speaking of gimmicks, the other big thing we got to talk about from this undercard was not in a month of Sundays was I ever guessing Randy Orton's opponent for this next match on the show. Like, I had the theories. I kind of just assumed that, and I think the crowd were going for Miro. It's a Miro Day chance. I kind of vaguely was thinking, what if like there is something to this CMLL relationship? Maybe there is, like, now there's a relationship with like Noah or something, but then there's no one really from Noah you could bring in. Then I started thinking, maybe it'll be Jeff Cobb then. Bit of a weird way to debut Jeff Cobb, but maybe that's the way they're going. At no point did I even half consider the idea it could be TNA World Champion Joe Hendry. And, like, I've seen him tweet already. Like, he's made up with himself, And again, it feels like I felt like this on a lower level with Vikingo. Again, I brought it up the Black Mirror episode where the girl can like rub the amulet and anything she wishes says out loud becomes true. Like, I feel like that happened to Vikingo. I'm going to be on WrestleMania. Or Phoenix, I'm going to be on WrestleMania. Like, did Joe Hendry have that? Like, I'm going to be in a match at WrestleMania against Randy Orton on Sunday. Like, but unfortunately, he didn't complete the wish because he probably should have wished for maybe an extra 3 minutes and also not maybe made to make look like Taz did against Triple H in the year 2000, or many of the other examples here as Randy Orton. One made short work of him, and I did laugh at the finish. Joe Hendry doing the Joe Hendry pose and Orton getting the RKO out of nowhere like that. It made me laugh both at it and with it, which, as we've discussed over Mania weekend, can be two quite different things. What made me really laugh at it, though, was like, they just have to, don't they? They just have to be cunts. And Randy Orton is built in that Triple H mold, that Vince McMahon mold of, you know what? They are below us TNA, and we're going to make it's clear, and everyone knows that. And Randy Orton should go over him, in this role, or it's not a travesty that this level of TNA as their world champion come and loses to Randy Orton at WrestleMania. All is not lost. TNA will be fine. If anything, as our friend Ewan has said, the business is better for this relationship, despite the counterintuitive nature of it. But I think what really wasn't necessary, but was hilarious, was Randy Orton laying the boot in with that second RKO. Like I say, that was very Triple H. It was very Vince McMahon. It was very Randy Orton. And I did laugh, but again, maybe for the wrong reasons. Good Lord, what a geek they made Joe Hendry look, but I suppose he is a geek. I suppose, at the end of the day, like, it's just so bizarre, isn't it? Like, what's he doing in this spot? Like, it feels six months too late. It feels like, is the meme even that big anymore? Like, say his name and he'll appear. Like, it gets its way to WrestleMania in 2025. Like, is Triple H just finding out about the song charting? Like, it's just so bizarre. Joe was asking me, JP, like, he's like, am I missing something? Is Joe Hendry like this big name on Twitter all of a sudden again? I was like, no, he's not. People don't really talk about him anymore. Like, but I guess he's the TNA champion. And he was available, and just an absolutely bizarre situation.
They will look at this as, we got our name on WrestleMania at the end.
Yeah, that's all it's going to matter, isn't it?
That's how they'll look at it. They shouldn't do. They should think, hang on a minute. Like, we need to be very, very wary of this stuff. And I think, like you say, with the amulet from Bête Noire of the latest series of Black Mirror,
that's the one.
He dropped it on the way to the ring. Because he's been using it pretty much non-stop for the last.
And I win.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, oh fuck, what am I going to do? And there you go. Gets RKO'd a couple of times in 3 minutes. Like, is on a show like this with the amount of adverts and everything else, shortening on time.
I can't believe how short it was. But the thing is, he's crap too. Really, that's the thing that gets left out of the conversation. He's not a good wrestler, and any time he's appeared on WWE, like the Rumble, he looks untrained. Like, I know he is, obviously, and he's at a high level than I ever was, or most. He's at a high level for a British wrestler. But he's not very good still. He's like, that's not high praise.
Years.
Yeah, he's kind of clunky in the ring, and he looks small next to Orton too, which obviously doesn't help that side of it too. And he did look unpolished, and he did look like a bit of a geek who maybe, that's the reason they gave 3 minutes, as much as like they wanted to bury TNA. But you can imagine the conversation, can't you, Garrett? Like, going to TNA, we want to put Joe Hendry on WrestleMania, and then snapping the fingers off, going, "You're going to protect him, though, aren't you?" And Triple H just not answering and putting the phone down. Like, I think that's probably how that conversation went. Because I think in their situation, we keep saying it, like, it's not ideal. And it's not, most wrestling promotions over the years, we'd bust out the JP, read the fucking history book line, and we'd say how bad it is for them. But I think counter to that, it has been good for TNA. It has. They've got better houses. It's undeniable since they've had this WWE relationship. The viewership's up, and their just general awareness. Like, even look at Mania weekend and the attendance it did for their show. Like, it has helped despite everything. And maybe do they have to just take their, just lump it when it comes to moments like this for the benefits they get? Maybe, Gareth.
Well, the TNA World Champion's going to work in front of a bigger crowd than the AEW World Champion this year.
True, yeah.
But it's just bizarre. It's bizarre. I did enjoy it as like a moment. I thought I think it worked great. Like you say, Joe Hendry doing the turn and getting the RKO, just the way it was framed and things like that was brilliant. It was so well done. Like you said there about you never crossed your mind about Joe Hendry. It literally crossed. It did genuinely cross my mind for a split second, and I thought, nah, that's finished. That's dead. The whole Joe Hendry thing. Like, so I thought it was gone. So like, it was literally his name popped in my head, and I just dismissed it immediately. So I was stunned when it happened. But do you know what though? Like, as much as I don't like Joe Hendry's in-ring work or anything like that, I was made up for him because I
do respect it.
You sometimes look at like these wrestlers, and you get so many wrestlers who just bitch and moan and things like that and complain about their lot in life and things like that. And he's genuinely a fellow who like takes the attitude of like, I'm going to try and do something different out of the box, invest my own money into something, like take a chance on myself and stuff. And it's fucking paid off. And okay, he got beaten 3 minutes against Randy Orton, but he was on WrestleMania in the ring with Randy Orton having a match, and you look at things from a TNA world title point of view, like, yeah, the TNT world champion got beaten 3 minutes on WrestleMania, but it was on WrestleMania. He got beaten by Randy Orton, who's genuinely one of the biggest stars in wrestling for the last 25 years. So, and does anybody truly believe that the TNA world title is on a par with like the WWE world title in terms of stature anyway? No, not even your most ardent TNA fan probably thinks that either, so damage really probably not that much. I think it's just a fascinating bit of business, because like the idea of this happening under the previous regime is just like, it's so like it's not even getting near happening, is it, kind of thing? So it's just one of those.
Now, if it did happen, it'd go like this, but it wouldn't happen. That's the thing, isn't it? The conversation wouldn't happen for it to take place. But this is exactly what Vince McMahon would book if he was forced to put the TNA World Champion.
This isn't Carlos Colon running down for the Royal Rumble,
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you said that, because, before you didn't slip there, you did say the other TNT champion I'd quite enjoyed. Is it Man Like Darius, whoever the TNT champion is right now on a WrestleMania? It has to be said, like, Joe Hendry, as far as like putting the work in and getting himself to this point, it is, literally is like, pinch yourself stuff that like he managed to get this character over to the point that even if it is a few months past the peak, got himself on WrestleMania. If you take the TNA side of it out of it, like, there is, a good story there, isn't there?
And his contract is up relatively soon, so he'll be gone, and he'll end up there, and he'll end up on NXT, and he'll do the meme stuff, and it'll work for
perfectly.
him. He fits it perfectly. He'll just need to get in better cosmetic shape, certainly.
There we go. Well, there you go. That was a good old laugh. And the only other couple of things to talk about from night 2, Logan Paul and AJ Styles. I wasn't expecting much going in. They didn't deliver much. To be honest, the best thing that came out of this, and I can't believe I'm saying it after the slagging I gave him a Bloodsport, was have you seen the Karrion Kross promo?
Yeah.
Post this, fucking brilliant. I don't know if you've seen it, Gareth. Like, he kind of blends the character side of it to the clearly frustrated about not being on WrestleMania side of it, to like have a go at AJ Styles for being selfish and not taking his advice, and the finish fucking sucked on the night. But for a moment, he made me believe in it and made me think, oh god, I want to see Karrion Kross versus AJ Styles. Now, he did a really good job, and it's about the best thing I can say about this, because I think the days of AJ Styles carrying Shane McMahon to a great WrestleMania match are gone. And to be honest, dare I say it, as much as I get entertainment value out of Logan Paul blooms off the rose a little bit with him as well, isn't it? Like we've seen it now, haven't we? We've seen the pony do the tricks. We've seen him have, matches that we didn't expect to be good, be better than they had any right to, and now he's probably, to be fair to him, having matches that are similar standard to what he was when he wowed us, but now he's not wowing us because it's become normal and never belonged on the Mania card in the start for me, and didn't really deliver on the night either. Forgotten it already, Andy says there. Yeah, don't think we need to spend much time on it, Gareth.
I mean, it was 17 minutes that felt like 40. You can't even say that there was stuff that was like bad in the match. It was just dull. It was just not. It was just nothingness, wasn't it? It was just like nearly 20ness of just pure, like nothingness. Like absolute, just pure boredom throughout. And I think the crowd felt exactly the same way because they were just totally dead, totally flat throughout things. Like completely as well, like just one of them that I couldn't wait to be over. Just boring as hell.
Yeah. I got this so wrong on the preview. So wrong.
I know what you were thinking. Though you were thinking Shane. I
was thinking Shane. Yeah, I couldn't have been further away from it, and I came away thinking Logan Paul should just be doing matches that are just ultra spotty. That is all it's at, and it needs to be a lot fucking quicker than this. I was so fucking bored, so bored, and like Gareth, it just felt it went on for days.
Yeah. Past that, the other two things to mention on the show: Becky Lynch making a return to tag with Valkyria, and a weird injury storyline, obviously with Bayley. Don't really understand why they needed that to get to this point. Maybe the story will be paid off on Raws and SmackDowns to come, but any thoughts on the match? At all? I think Becky looked. It was a nice moment to see her back, and she looked happy to be back out there and looked like she hadn't wrestled in a while too. And they had a very, very throwaway tag match that I thought there'd be more storyline other than just winning the belts. I thought there'd be more of a moment where it'd be like it's all set up for Becky to turn heel and join Heyman and Rollins and wouldn't take that off the table entirely. Maybe they end up doing that on night 2, but it was a bit underwhelming really for the big mooted comeback.
I should be very excited by the idea of 2 Irish women becoming tag team champions in WWE. But my mind went to, why don't they call them Chucky R. Lass and just Chucky R. Lasses and just go that way in there and do this. And what were I was glad she wasn't dressed up like second Blade Runner reference of the night. She's not dressed up like Pris anymore, Daryl Hannah from Blade Runner. But how stupid Laura Valkyria looks with the fucking wings on her arms, just completely daft. Rubbish match. Just a complete filler.
Yeah. Moment.
Yeah. Nothing to add.
Well, the big moment of the night, the last thing to cover before we talk some other highlights from the weekend and maybe a little bit of a pro from Saturday afternoon, was the other moment that I think said young Matty Edwards going and sent a certain young woman flying based on the image behind you, JP, which was Steve Austin coming out to fill the Shawn Michaels role of announcing yet another record attendance of a sold-out crowd that somehow was 4,000 bigger than the sold-out crowd the night before. You figure out the maths on how they do that. Our man on the ground did say, though, it did look busier night 2, and that usually is the case. The Sundays are busier than the Saturdays, but fuck me, have you seen the cover? Never mind the footage behind it, JP. Have you seen the footage of Austin coming out in the first place and taking the wrong turn? The reason he took his music playing for so long, I was like, what the fuck's going on? He didn't go onto the stage. He rode his fucking bike around the corner, and then the production hands had to back him up and get him back. It almost went even worse. There's always that risk, isn't there, when Steve's fucking behind the wheel of something, and it looked like he had been drinking since the Hall of Fame on Friday as he fucking ragged that thing around the ring. I don't know. I felt like we already talked, obviously, the night 2 main event, but that entire night 2 main event, what I didn't mention was I was probably distracted for the first half of it, watching that girl in the crowd, seeing if she cracked a smile yet, as she had Nick Khan over on all fours. Where there's a blame, there's a claim, mate. Felt like there was money to be made there as she took maybe a bigger bump than was needed from Steve going around the ring. Yeah,
I laughed so much.
It was
and
funny.
I did find myself watching it. It was funny. And it was funny because I'm just going to say it. There's fuck all wrong with her. Yeah. Because she went, fall back. Hang on, I'm in America, aren't I? Right, pay up. That's very
if you
much.
can afford front row at WrestleMania, do you really need? I don't get it. I get any money. Maybe she didn't like the show and she wanted the money back. Maybe that's what she was after. Front row tickets to next year's. Maybe she does this every year. Maybe it happened to her last year as well. She's after front row tickets 2 years in a row.
It is an accident waiting to happen if someone's driving at high speed around
Steve's
the
a blame,
wrestling ring.
As funny as it is.
Maybe just have him drive to the end of the ramp and then that's it. Like, call me crazy. It just seems like this kind of stuff was sadly inevitable. But her claim would work if it was the fact there wasn't a big fucking barrier in front of her. And it wasn't, and no one else fell down. Even the bloke who was stood up leaning on the fucking thing as he hit it. So, I just thought, she's going to do it. She's going to sue. Nick Khan is going to do whatever. Hopefully, Steve's not putting a single hand in his fucking pocket as revenge for.
He tried to say sorry, didn't he? On his way out, he went out and gave it a little bit of a pat on the shoulder and stuff. She wasn't selling it. She wasn't having it.
Which, again, she should have sold that, if anything else. Fucking hell, shouldn't she? She would have got a few more quid out of it.
I think Matty would have paid extra to be in her position. The money he's been spending this weekend on tickets and, photo opportunities with people. He'd have spent another $1,000 to get run over by Steve. Most people would see it as a badge of honour, I think.
I like to think that Steve just whispered in her ear, DTA.
Yeah. and for the money she'll get, I'll take a Sammy Guevara style bump off the fucking thing if need be. Jesus Christ, for that kind of cash. Funny as fuck though.
It was. As was the number that Steve announced, which
lies, more lies.
It is, I got it, and it's down there as far as WrestleManias go. It's the lowest, even in fake numbers they've given for I think 17 years. Largest number there wasn't that though. Did they actually do the whole gate thing and you all paid the most money ever for a WrestleMania thing? I don't think that was part. Maybe Steve forgot his lines. Wasn't part of the announcement, was it? Strange. Usually I like to get that one in and everyone cheers.
He did that weird counting thing instead, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny though because that's the sort of thing where I would say I'd literally watch I could literally be entertained by Steve Austin just counting people in the crowd, and that's what he did. And it was. And I could have sat there and watched him get up to 200 or something like that and still just been enjoying just seeing Steve Austin there on my telly just talking
It's so funny they couldn't get him out of bed for the Mania main event last year and they had to wind up give Undertaker 50% of the salary and obviously he'll come and do fucking anything money including his one dead man show. So yeah, Steve's willing to just come out and read numbers out apparently. He was always up for it. Guess it just depended on location. He only lives down the road.
But as predicted by on our show the other day, it was amazing how that they've managed to shift an extra 10,000 tickets there, haven't they? In the final 24 hours. It's amazing how they always do that, isn't it? It's weird.
Platt was saying the prices came down a lot. I know you got some last minute cheapo ones as well, but yeah, usually that's the pattern with the feather at the minute. Maybe we'll WrestleNomics or WrestleTix will give us a bit more of a reliable number as the days and weeks come on. But unless there's more on Mania itself, got a little bit of time here at the end of the show to talk some highlights and lowlights of the weekends and do a little bit of mop up. Like I say, I wasn't all wrestled out on Sunday afternoon. I did actually. I got up and I literally watched the entirety of the clusterfuck. JP, you'd be proud of me. I did skip, to be honest. I did liberally skip a little bit when Wheatus started playing as was my cue. Very much. There's a couple of moments in that match that definitely need to click along to. But what I did make some time to watch today, and I know you did as well. Watched a little bit of the Red Pro show from Doncaster. It was a bit of a poison chalice, that wasn't it? It felt like one of the better shows on Mania weekend. Felt like Easter Sunday can be positive and negative as far as running a show. But nice little Sunday afternoon spot, and I know a lot of people, Connor included in the chat there. I think the Ogdens were out there, made the trip over, but it was a little bit of, with so much of the wrestling going on, I think people will probably only now be finding time to fit it in. But yeah, right before we went on air, at least managed to watch the important stuff, which was Mercedes' entrance and seeing how that came across, as she is very much the one that drew the house, and the Michael Oku and Leon Slater match, which we're about to talk some Mania weekend highlights, and we do include the other shows going on across across the world on Mania weekend. And I think we have to include these two because they were two Mania weekend standouts. Who Michael Oku was the final count 7 matches, or was it 6 matches he had out in Las Vegas? Managed to catch a flight and find himself in Doncaster, finishing the weekend. Unbelievable. Like, first up, like, even if they went out there and they shit the bed, the two lads, like, I would have been like, you know what, fair play, lads. You managed to do it. You managed to pull it off and work, Saturday night shows in Vegas and then a Sunday night show in Rev Pro, Sunday afternoon show even in Rev Pro. But they're out there. And honestly, I was already about to say, and I think Gareth might say the same thing. One of the matches of the weekend for me was Luke Jacobs versus Michael Oku from Progress. Genuinely, may even be the best match of the weekend. I think this was even better. They went out there, and I imagine you haven't had the chance to see it yet, Gareth, but 30-minute match, but earned its runtime. Felt a little bit in the first 15 minutes. Maybe they were brushing the cobwebs off a little bit, built it around Michael Oku's leg selling for the first 15 minutes of the match and kind of established that story before they kicked it into high gear for the finishing stretch there. But earned every minute of its runtime for me, and I'll be hats off to the two of them for putting a match together of this level. I think I go, it's fresh because I only just saw it, but maybe 4.25 to a 4.5 match, and didn't go anywhere near that in any other match this weekend, JP.
Oh, I'd be going for 4.25, and it may be on a rewatch 4.5 because I say I literally just squeezed it in before before recording today. I was so impressed with Leon. I mean, Michael Oku, we kind of expect it. The fact that they're there, like you've said, it's just incredible because they must have just been so fucking exhausted. I know Connor spoke to him. He just said, I'm absolutely knackered. And it's like, I don't blame you, mate, considering jet lag and everything else. But Leon Slater is turning into an absolute hell of a talent. He really is.
What did you say to him, mate, in Newcastle? You had those dad-like words with him over a pizza. I think you talked him into it. I was like, come on, mate, just get the gym a little bit, get your weight up, go to TNA. That'll sort you out. I don't know what you said to him, but it's working.
A couple of slices of my pizza apparently have massively helped out with that, I think, as much as anything, because he was fucking starving as well because he was looking over and I was like, oh, mate.
Probably was here. What did he eat? Hair playing food? I don't know.
Oh, God, because but he's starting to really look the part. And the fact he could he have done a half an hour match like a year, 18 months ago? A half an hour match to this kind of quality? Probably not. Like, I mean, it probably would have been good, but he was very much a kind of a moves with a Z guy at times, but he's really coming on as a worker. Still only 20. That needs to be remembered in all of this. But just in terms of like just the absolute basics, because it wasn't, like you say, it just wasn't a spot fest. Like the way he was working over Oku's leg was completely convincing. Like I say, he earned that half an hour runtime. I was so impressed with him, and I don't want Michael Oku to get lost out of the conversation because we kind of take him for granted in many ways. That there's this guy who is always like around, but I thought he was. It was.
Yeah, he was brilliant, and I'd say like the thing I think you'll like about it, Gareth, it was a limb weight match, like JP says there, but in a way that fit Leon Slater. So like he's working over the knee and doing his best, but what he's using it for is to take advantage, and it helps him. Like he hits like a big flip dive to the outside over the posts, like, and Oku's only in that position because Oku can barely move. Like, and the way he tries to take advantage of that is then he rolls him back in the ring, and it's a 450. He gets like the near fall from off that, and he's using it as a way to get an advantage for his big stuff. And then when he tried to use Oku's half grab, which again he's not as good at as putting on as Oku is, which meant it gave Oku an opening to counter it, and then Oku's kind of almost half like working his knee at that point, and Oku's like at that point only really staying in the match because he's got a mirror on the outside. They love to have that little bit of drama in it that kind of pushes him to pull it back, and then he gets the win out of nowhere. It was like a Rana reversal of a powerbomb that I think Slater kind of as a shoot seemed to struggle to get to, and that very much felt like the Mania weekend cobwebs as the two of them kind of fought over what are we going to do. Am I going to try and pick him back up, or is Oku going to try and find another reversal? But they fought their way through it, get into the powerbomb position, and then he gets like the roll up win. Oku kind of out of nowhere, out of pure desperation. But even that added to the match. It kind of showed that like they're both knackered for the weekend, and they're both like suffering from this match, so things wouldn't be perfect, and Oku as the more veteran of the two, would pull it out and would use his brain to just grab him and hook a leg and manage to get a pin out of nowhere. So really good storytelling for a big moves match that it kind of was simultaneously at the same time as a limb seller match. Really good stuff. I don't think there was, like I say, the Jacobs match is probably the closest thing, but that's cool as well this weekend. I think you said it, didn't you, Gareth, on one of the daily shows? Was it last year or the year before? We were like, why is Michael Luco had like one booking? And we were like, why is he not all over this weekend? In fact, it was coming off the Ospreay match, wasn't it? We were like, why is he not all over this weekend? This year, in 3 or 4 different places, he had the match of the night. And this is very much one of them for me, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah. And I think a point with that as well that we were making on that show the other day was just how hard he worked in every single one of their matches. So he got the bookings this year, and then he went out to try and do something good in all of those matches, didn't he? It wasn't like it's, here you go, I've got 5 or 6 matches, I'm gonna take this one easy, or I'm gonna like save myself for some of the bigger shows. Every single time you saw Oku over the course of this weekend is like absolutely knocked it out of the park. Every time, put so much effort into things, worked different match styles, showed his versatility, as talked about the other day. Just been a great weekend for him, I think.
Yeah. Perfect. And obviously, we'll catch up on some more of the Red Pro show at some point. JP of high stakes, I would like to see. How it went with Mercedes. She was in good form. She was post match taking photos with quite a few of our listeners, which was nice to see. Seemed to be on good spirits. Seemed to be in a good mood. Quite happy to be in Doncaster. But I don't
staying
know
in central Doncaster.
Wow, there you go. Yeah, that's a Mania weekend. But I don't know if you've heard much on the Kanji match. I haven't seen much feedback. I know the Graps and Claps lads, I think they've got a podcast out on it.
Yes, they do. Like I say, only saw the entrance to it. Looked like a good crowd as well. Just looked like obviously a bigger crowd from last time. Seemed like she enjoyed it, and when she comes down to London, then that's going to be the kind of bigger test. But it seemed like it carried on the vein of form that she's generally had in big matches this year. And so I've heard nothing bad about the Kanji match, which I'm glad, as much for Kanji, because she's put in a shift as well over the last year and really improved.
And it was smart as well to have that as your main event and then use it as a spotlight for Oko and Leon Slater. Felt like smart business. So hopefully people can get some time to fit that in over the weekend. But speaking of the weekend as a whole, like I say, I did manage to fit the clusterfuck in as well. Nobody else needs to. It was actually, to be honest, it was it wasn't good. I'm not recommending anybody go and watch it, but it definitely wasn't as bad as previous clusterfucks have been. I got a good laugh out of it. They had Stitsky in there, and of course he punted the baby. That made me laugh. The Warlord turned up after not turning up to his booking the night before at spring break. That gave me a good chuckle. And genuinely, like doing the end with Brody Lee Jr. Going over, I thought that was a genuinely nice moment. -1, making his I think professional debut there. There was no better, happier ending to a daft match like the clusterfuck that opened with the Tokyo Joshi Pro singing girls and had all kinds of wackiness all the way through it. Like that's the best. Juggle Championship Wrestling did the run in. There was a wrestler who was asleep in a bed for the entirety of the match. I didn't really understand that gimmick. There was all the usual daft stuff that you get in a clusterfuck. Like they're always a funny one to kind of like, how do we even end it? Like half the people get eliminated by just leaving the ring. If you're going to end it in any way, that was a really nice way, and the crowd were well up for it as well to see the young lad get his big win. And Darius got to the end as well. It was Joey Janela who put him over at the end, but Darius was celebrating the ring. It was a good weekend for him, I thought. But yeah, I had more fun watching the clusterfuck than I imagined, and the scramble cage match that came before it wasn't quite up to the standard of the ROH scramble cage matches, but nobody broke a leg, so that's probably a good thing that it wasn't to the standard of the ROH matches like that. But I did manage to fit that in. Did you manage to fit any other shows in, Gareth, since we last spoke from the weekend that maybe rivaled what I think both of our show of the weekend are going to be as we get into some of those picks?
No, I've got to be honest, mate. I think after that was quite heavy hitting, getting all of those shows.
Didn't fancy Microman and No Legs and the clusterfuckers, Andy says here. Yeah, that was another highlight. Glad to see No Legs back in the ring.
Since we recorded that, there is some stuff that I do want to catch up on. I think once there's the odd match that I've not seen yet that I've seen people in the Discord talk about. There's some shows that are going to be going up later on. YouTube. I think like the Dusk Pro Wrestling Show, and there's a Deadlock,
Deadlock,
on there as well. But I've genuinely, apart from watching both nights of WrestleMania and the Hall of Fame, after we recorded that show, the only other thing I've watched is half of Joey Janela's Spring Break, and so that's as.
Did you see Sabu and Janela?
That's as far, I've seen the gifs of that. That's what
you need to see.
But I was up to last night. I had a few drinks when I was watching this last night, but I did find myself really enjoying that Atticus Koga Fuego del Sol match.
Yeah,
I thought that
it was a good one.
like it. I really enjoyed that. So I was thinking, I might go back and watch that with sober eyes and see if it was as good as I thought it was when I went to bed last night.
Me and JP both liked that, didn't we? We were both praising that one. It was very indie and it was very GCW and a bit messy, but that's what you get on a spring break show. And that's really what Sabu and Janela was. It was also very fucking messy, and yet those two gifts, like I haven't stopped laughing from the one where Sabu goes out backwards, like through the barbed wire, or the one where he tries to do the world's shittest dive to Joey Janela over the barbed wire. Oh, it was one of those weekends, wasn't it, where like I think we said that they were the lessons of the weekend. I feel like meme wrestling might be back, because the biggest enjoyment of the weekend was watching Butterbean and Minoru Suzuki with, like, honestly, like some of the worst striking you'll ever see in a match, and like the most work Minoru Suzuki will ever do in a match trying to keep Butterbean going. Is Butterbean okay? Apparently he was signing autographs at WrestleCon yesterday afternoon, so we believe he is okay. I think it is okay to laugh. Pissed myself laughing at that. Minoru Suzuki versus the Doll was another highlight of this Mania weekend. I don't know whether that's a lesson or not. Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one, Gareth, if you get a chance to see it. Like, it's literally Minoru Suzuki working a Bruins pick. Like, I think you might like it. I think you liked Invisible Man, Invisible Stan, which I may well have given 5 stars on the Grapple App all those years ago. Yeah, so like similar kind of quality to it. It was very good. Like, those were, to be honest, a lot of the standouts. I think, Gareth, you're right that, like, I think the better shows were from that meet venue, and some of the better shows feel like the ones that we haven't seen make tape yet, like the Deadlock show. Chris Platt was raving about that one as a live experience. Feels like a real lost opportunity. That didn't make it to YouTube. But to be honest, over the weekend, maybe it's the meme matches, but I had a hell of a time. I'm not sure there's anything. A few people have asked me, like, just generally, casually, Hamlet out there going, oh, is there anything I've missed that I should see? Not massively from an in-ring point of view, not massively from a solo match point of view. There was just a couple of shows I really enjoyed, and there was just a general... To be honest, I enjoyed the variety this year for a lot of the same characters, but it felt like there were more of them. It felt like there were hundreds of wrestlers, not tens of wrestlers in Vegas this weekend, and like the different venues had very different feels as far as who was getting used on shows. Like, I raved about one of the matches from one of the Dragon Gate shows, Pro Wrestling Revolution, which is not something that's ever been on. Oh, did you see the match? That's ever been on my radar as like a promotion or a match, or even when I don't think we even previewed it. The Lucha Solos versus what are they called? The Panther Brothers, Aero Panther and Fight Panther. You saw it, did you, JP? Like, have you ever seen a match where 4 lads have just gone in and just done everything they know? Like, all of their moves. That's basically what that match was. 15 minutes. I don't think James would like it. I'm not saying Garrett's gonna like it, but I had a fucking great time. It was just the moves match of the weekend.
How they walked away is beyond me. Some of the stuff they were doing was fucking nuts. Lads this size as well. I had a great time watching that.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
15 minutes of just like...
Lucha Solos seem like your boys, like just chunky luchadors. That's what we want. We need more chunky luchadors.
One of them wears a mask, the other one doesn't. All
I'm sure there's law. I'm sure there's a reason. Well. But whatever.
But like you say, the couple of spots at the end they were doing were just like fucking berserk and bonkers, and then just
the Doomsday spot.
Yeah, there were plenty of empty chairs as well that they could dive into. One of those big lads from Lucha so just fucking did like...
Was that one when he got run by his brother to the outside or whatever it was? Like, fucking... Honestly, God, I think you'd hate it, but I think you'd enjoy hating it, maybe. I don't know if that's the selling point, but it was a proper, like, backyard lucha match kind of quality to it, but with obviously a higher level of work. They weren't bad by any means, the 4 wrestlers in it. It was just, moves with the Z. Let's just steal this weekend. Let's steal this show. Because it was ostensibly a Dragon Gate show, and like what everyone seems to be talking about is that. Apparently the main event was very good too. I haven't seen that, but that was the match that was highest on people's recommend list that I made sure I got.
Sounds like it's right up my street, that.
I don't know. The main event might be, but yeah, you might be right. Might not necessarily be for you, but yeah, A lot of fun for those who if you're willing to check your brain at the door. My God, do those lads go out there and very much do that. That was a highlight for me. I think the prestige, like we said, that meet venue very much felt like the indie fans, indie show, indie arena, where it was full of fans who would actually come to Vegas to watch some wrestling and to be invested in the products that they were in front of. I bet the West Coast Pro Show feels like it was the same way, and it sounds like the Deadlock show was there the same way from that venue, and that's also where that Dragon Gate show took place from. But I think the Prestige show was the one that me and you were most high, Gareth, on, if you're talking, and obviously it's one of yours, isn't it? Prestige as a promotion. I think it was there's no match on there I'd necessarily single out and tell people they need to see, but as far as like a variety show of here's what this promotion has on offer, as far as like, a fun tag to open it with the Lycosses against your boys Sinner and Saint. There was a fun big man, little man match in the undercard there as well. There was a lot of story, and I'm sure you can sell us on, Gareth, as well. I think Prestige did a good job of saying this is our promotion, this is our advertising. Come and watch us on a regular week when it's not a rammed WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think I was saying on that other show, it's sort of a promotion I just follow kind of in the background without talking about, really. And then I feel like this weekend suddenly feels like their coming out party, really. It feels like I'm hearing lots of people talking about Prestige, and it feels a bit weird to hear so many people talking about Prestige. But a good thing is recent shows been on YouTube for free, and obviously this show been on YouTube for free, and them having one of their big Roseland shows, within the last month again on YouTube for free that people can check out. So definitely been a win from their perspective, I think, from a sales point of view. I mean, you say about matches on that card. Oh,
Jordan Cruz, both Young Prodigy was the big man, little one, yeah.
I'll pull out Kevin Blackwood against Leon Slater though on that one, where you talk about up to that point, that was probably my match of the weekend, so far. There was some really good stuff from Slater in that one, and a perfect opponent for him in Kevin Blackwood. But yeah,
the good weekend.
Plenty of story going on with Alan Angels and his crew are no longer crew and new crew in that one. So check it out if you haven't watched that one.
What was your match of the weekend, you'd say, Gareth, then, from what you saw? What was it, Oku and Jacobs? Don't want to give the credit to Progress, but it's true, isn't it?
Regrettably, I'm going to have to say a match from Progress Wrestling, but it is, and it's regrettably because of the promotion, not because of the wrestlers involved. It's Luke Jacobs against Michael Oku. It's going to be good, and fucking hell, they went out there and just absolutely killed it. Had a fantastic match, and again, I think it's one of those where, again, if you've got your anti-progress sensibilities and things like that, I think you've got to leave them at the door and just watch this match, because it's it totally cuts through and does well. And maybe if Progress did a bit more of this instead of fucking comedy wrestlers doing stupid stuff, or indeed JP's favourite winning titles, maybe there'd be more eyes on the product.
Well,
for good reasons, for right reasons that might make you actually want to, buy a ticket or watch their product on a continuous basis. But I don't know. I doubt we've got that message this weekend.
What was your match of the weekend, JP? And why was it a certain Hollywood actor? Why was it Paul Walter Hauser?
I found myself defending that, didn't I, on Saturday, which is probably the delusion that comes into it. There is a part of me that really actually wants to say that it's probably recency bias. That I want to say it's that Lucha Solos versus Panther Brothers, because there wasn't really anything else like that. It was so spectacular. Part of me also massively wants to say Sabu versus Joey Janela, but not for the right reasons. You have to see it. You have to fucking see it.
What was funny at that, or Minoru Suzuki and Butterbean? I'm not sure. They're both, again, for wrong reasons.
Sabu, just various points. No, let's shake hands.
They needed Dan Severn to ref it, then I'd go with that.
Needed a Butterbean running. Although I don't know how he would have even got through those barbed wire ropes.
How did they not get him in the clusterfuck? Unbelievable.
Incredible stuff. But yeah, they would be a couple for me. From there, when it comes to show of the weekend, I mean, is it cheating to say Dynamite from Wednesday? Because that was fucking incredible.
It's true, isn't it? It's annoying again because it's WrestleMania weekend. AEW kind of gets squeezed to the end. We said the same on Thursday's show, But literally, like, there wasn't a better show this weekend than Dynamite last week. There weren't better matches. Have you seen it yet, Gareth, last week's Dynamite, or have you still been waiting?
I'm up to Will Ospreay's ring entrance. That's how far I've got through. So I think I've done an hour. I think the first hour.
What do you think so far?
What a fucking good hour that was.
Yeah, it's so good, isn't it?
Everything, the building, the crowd, everything about it, just perfection. Brilliant.
It carries on.
Yeah, I don't think the Ospreay match is going to change your mind. That was great too. Ospreay Takeshita, brilliant stuff. Yeah, exactly what we want Dynamite to be, isn't it? And let's hope to keep that moment. Collision wasn't so much, but Dynamite this week, let's keep that momentum going. Great venue too, as you say. Brilliant stuff.
I just want to shout out as well. I think that from Bloodsport as well, and anyone who's been listening to the show for any length of time knows how much I'm not a Bloodsport fan, or haven't been a Bloodsport fan over the years. But that Shinya Aoki Charlie Dempsey match on that, absolutely fucking class, like brilliant little match, that one. I think it's I'm sure everybody who's watched anything from WrestleMania weekends watched Bloodsport, but if you haven't seen that, that's definitely one worth checking out. I'd also say the Zack Sabre Jr. aggression match on that card as well. I fucking loved that one as well. So if anyone out there feels like they have similar sensibilities to me when it comes to wrestling, those two matches should jump out to you.
Basically, when James asked, that's exactly what I said. What Gareth liked. You'll hate half of Bloodsport because it's very WWE in presentation and hashtag not my Bloodsport, way too polished for me. But the positive was, I think the work level was higher than in recent years. And same as you, I've enjoyed those matches. Got no problem with Regal's lad like I have with Regal himself. I even enjoyed Natty Neidhart on that show. Didn't necessarily enjoy Killer Cross, but yeah. No. Yeah, the Rage Against the Machine remix of the Heart Foundation theme. Maybe we could use that as a spotlight intro, JP. Maybe that's not been copywritten. Rage Against the Machine hate the man. They wouldn't come for us, surely. We'll see. Any other highlights or lowlights from the weekends? Any other observations? Like I say, I enjoyed it. I don't think the level was quite what it was, let's say, 5 years ago. But it hasn't been for 5 years. I think the last few years of Mania weekends have been like this, where there isn't, the standouts that I was before. All you can really hope for, I think, is variety. And I think we did get that this year. We got a lot of WWE, which I know was your worry going into the weekend, JP. But I do think we have the variety, and I think the weekend's going to feel even better once, though, like I say, that Deadlock show makes tape, because Platt's in the chat there saying again how great that was. I think maybe we'll remember it even fonder than we do.
We will.
So I enjoyed it.
I would completely agree with that. I would say on the low light front, WWE ID tournament was by far and away the worst show that I'd seen. I was quite angry.
Clusterfuck was better, as was Spring Break. Surprisingly, not too bad this year. Spring Break.
My God, Spring Break looked like fucking Wrestle Kingdom compared to that. Christ, not incomparable.
There you go. But yeah, that's it really as far as highlights of the weekend go. Pretty low key one, but there was still plenty to keep us busy on. And of course, we were over on the Patreon, doing all kinds of shows. As I've mentioned already, we do have Matty's audio up. I'm told he's going to be doing it, and obviously at time of recording, Raw is 2 hours away. So hopefully, all our takes from WrestleMania do still hold up, and they are made out of date by the end of the night. But Matty will be in tomorrow. He's become the solo audio king now on the podcast, JP. I think he's very much taking the lead on that.
He can do the news dump now from now on. He's
sorted. The MattyMania news jump coming a podcast near you. But obviously, we do need to plug it, as we did there. Put a lot of hours into it, a lot of content. Thank you to our patrons for sticking with us across the weekend. We've been doing daily shows all week, including Matty's updates that I've got on the screen there. Obviously, we have Spotlight, which was live tonight for our patrons. Obviously, Matty's been in daily with the updates as well. But we've been doing daily shows covering a bit more detail, Spring Break and things like that DDT Vegas show that we talked about there, as well as Bloodsport on the Tuesday, on the Thursday, we covered on the Friday with me and Gareth, as well as we talked about the WrestleCon Super Show, Prestige, Defy, Pandemonium Pro, even talked some Collision on that show, and of course reviewed Dynamite on the Day One show as well. I don't think we really missed anything. We at least covered elements of every show this weekend, so I think job well done if I'm going to pat us on the back, JP.
We do. He did an absolutely brilliant job, mate, because you were there for all of it as well.
I've got nothing else to do, mate.
Shout out.
I'm unemployed and homeless, so I've got nothing else to do. I've got a flight to catch to Bangkok on Wednesday, so, I had some time on my hands.
So if you want all of that goodness, where do you go to? Well, you go to patreon.com/grapple or youtube.com/@grapple. And there you go. Kind of, it wouldn't even get you a third of a cup of Coke Zero from the Fontainebleau hotel that Matty had to pay.
Can't believe he paid for it though. He didn't have to, and he did. You know, he's a new man. Has he got like a little Patreon on the side where he's making all this money to pay for it? I don't know where it's. He's like say paying for autographs, paying for Cokes. Yeah, maybe. Has he got an OnlyFans we don't know about? I don't know what's going on. Maybe we'll reveal that on tomorrow's update.
It sounds like it. Like you say, the fucking money he's spending is definitely turned over a new leaf anyway, hasn't he?
Something's going on.
Definitely. Well, like I say, you can get his updates over on the Patreon if you don't fancy joining the Patreon. Last quick plug: the YouTube is available, as well as replays of all of our GRAPPLMania coverage is over there, as well as all of our other stuff. Spotlight goes up every week as well if you fancy it. A video version of Spotlight and the odd weekend show as well. You can get that over on the YouTube. But yeah, like I say, it's been a busy week, so we're gonna take some time off. Not sure if there'll be a weekend show this week. Obviously, I'll be away, so it's in the hands of JP. But I think we maybe end one off, I reckon, JP.
I reckon
that show's probably going to be Matty's return to proceedings, which will be the Matty Edwards show at the weekend. Will be the biggest Matty Edwards show of the year, I'm pretty sure, based on the audio we've had so far, as well as a Platt show on CM Punk's world title reign. I reckon you'll do us justice there, Gareth, and then of course the Spotlight next week, which will be in the hands of JP and Matty. I'll leave you to it, like you whatever his fancy. Maybe we'll get a bit of MattyMania on that one as well. So plenty coming while I'm away.
And TNA Rebellion, mate. We're going to be all over that. It'd be fucking awesome.
There you go, TNA week. It's always a TNA week when I'm away, isn't it?
Is.
There you go. Got that to look forward to as well. Hopefully that'll pop some numbers. But yeah, get it in there. Get your CM Punk homework done, as Platt says there as well. But as always, thank you to our patrons for carrying us through the week. Thank you to our live patrons for being here live with us late across all of the nights this week. It's been a busy old week for them as well. They put the shift in like me and you have put the shift in, lads. So yeah, thank you very much to everybody who's tuned in for us. And like you say, we've got the King of the Mountain, Chris Platt's show coming at the weekend. But thank you to all of our other Kings of the Mountain: Conor Laughlin, Eddie Sideburns, Chris Platt himself, Carl Gack, Sophia Hitchcock as Queen of the Mountain, and Simon Mulvaney. We will catch you again for another GRAPPLMania. We'll make it number 8 next year, JP. We'll get to 10.
We will do. Bye.
Sleep well, everyone.
And rest.
Good night, all.